Welcome one and all. It's time for the biggest old world event ever. How can that be true? Well, how are we quantifying the size of a tournament? In this case, there are two measurements that I'm using to determine that this is the biggest event of all time. One, it's 3,000 points, mega battles. The other one is the size of the butt cheeks of my Doomseeker. Either one of those, perfectly valid reasons for claiming this is the biggest old world tournament ever. So, let's dive straight in, shall we? So, 3,000 points, what do you expect to see? Do you expect that people are going to bring more fun lists because they think, well, I've got an extra 1,000 points to spend, why don't I just throw in a giant or some other comedy units? Or do you think people will just dial up to 11 the filth that they already bring? So you'll see like even more ridiculous dragons with mega saves, even more enormous Death Stars of unkillable points denial units. What would you bring? And I can tell you that there was quite a lot of that, but there were also some real armies there as well that looked like proper Warhammer armies on the table. Mine certainly can do. Mine can look like a real army, depending how I lay out the units, what kind of formation I look for. I see in the chat we've got Eric and Hampus. Good evening. So, what is this list in any way different to what I normally run? It's very similar to the kind of thing I've been running with a big unit of Rangers, not a mega-sized unit of Rangers, only 33. The rest of the core is filled up with 16 Thunderers, so it's not just one big Ranger unit, because at a tournament, I don't want to use models that don't really fit in with the look of the unit. So I'm only using the crossbow models and the old metal Rangers together, and that's just how many I have, so it's 33. And I think even I only have 32, but after I submitted my list I realised I was one model short, so you can see one guy with a shield has snuck in there as well to make up the numbers. We've got Saurus in the chat as well. Good evening. So let's start with the basic concept of the army. It is very much the blast a unit of hammerers across the table list, which is why the anvil and the pony cart are in there to facilitate that. The pony cart will give them extra movement, the anvil will allow them to move twice, sometimes when it feels like it, and because rangers can scout, they can potentially be right in front of the enemy at the start of the game as well. So I can have two units blasting off in front of the enemy. And that is pretty much the plan. The gyrocopters can also join in with that. I was looking at all different kinds of list archetypes for 3,000 points. I was looking at mega war machine gun lines. My concern with that is that I wouldn't be able to send any units across the table because then I've got nothing to protect my war machines and they would just get chomped. And the dwarf war machines aren't good enough to deal with the things that chomp them. The cannons don't do enough damage, and the organ guns, for example, can't use engineer's ballistic skill. So just not great. Grudge throwers, unreliable at hitting, and they're all expensive. They're all 100 points or more, so they're just going to get mega chomped. Even more so in mega battles, they would just be unguarded. So I've tried not to put too much in there that's just giving up easy points. The only things really would be gyrocopters and the pony cart, but they're not very expensive anyway. Let's start with the heroes then. Well, I can start with the Slayer's butt if we like. We even got an extreme close-up of the enhanced butt cheeks of the... is being used as a Doomseeker in this game for intimidation, extra large buttocks. So, here is the hero layout. We've got Burlock Daminson right there. He's the general because he's the cheapest source of leadership 10 that you can take in the list as far as I can tell. And he also prevents a shooting unit from being -1 to hit for long range. So he's either going to go in Rangers if they're close enough, or Thunderers or Iron Drakes, depending who I think is going to benefit most from it. I do like him in Iron Drakes actually, and I do have a big unit of them. Then we've got the Anvil of Doom with the Master Rune of Adamant, so it's toughness 10. So even Empire Cannons are only wounding it on a 4+, and many monsters will be wounding it on 6s, so very unlikely to get killed, but it could happen. Then we've got a Runesmith with 3, there he is on the corner there, 3 runes with spell breaking for 3 auto dispels, and if he's in the hammer unit, he could also be blasted across the table into range to actually use them. Otherwise he could go into one of the shooting units to give them extra armor bane and flaming attacks perhaps. Then we've got the Machine Gun Thane of Doom with the Rune of Rapid Fire, Accuracy, and Bursting Flame. So 2 shots, they explode into 2d3 each, and they always hit on 3s. So very dangerous rune combo there on the handgun. Then finally, in mercenary characters, we've got the Slayer, Mr. Alric Big Butts himself, the Doomseeker, with one rune, which is Rune of the Reckless. So he's +1 to hit the enemy in combat, and they're also +1 to hit him. So if he gets to charge in and gets to attack first, he could do some good damage. He's 85 points, so if he stays alive at the end of the game and nothing else dies, it's a draw. If he gets killed, he doesn't give up those 85 points. So he's just going to gun straight towards the enemy. People will usually just shoot him, because it's more hassle trying to avoid a Doomseeker, because they do have quite a long potential charge range of 12 inches. So usually people decide they're going to dedicate one turn to just killing him and just forget those points. Get rid of him, and don't have to worry about it. In core, we've got the 33 Rangers, with full command, crossbows, throwing axes, shields, great weapons, all the upgrades, and they've also got a Rune of Battle on the Standard Bearer. I've put in a lot of runes of battle because I imagine I'm going to need combat resolution in this event for dealing with particularly things like big flyers going in there. It just helps you, extra 1 on the combat res, a bit more likely that you'll win. Then 16 Thunderers, they don't have a banner, so that guy at the back is just going to be the first casualty. They do have a musician and a champion, but they don't want a banner, they just don't want to give up extra points because they're likely to be a sacrificial unit in their positioning. They're going to be much cheaper than the others. They are 218 points compared to, like, the Rangers, 538 points. In special section, we've got 3 gyrocopters with clatter guns for the march and shoot ability, and they're going to go war machine hunting probably. Then, also in special, we've got 20 hammerers, and oh, I didn't even tell you about my BSB yet. I'll go back there in a second. It's a Thane. So the hammerers they're drilled, they have Master Rune of Hesitation and the Stroller's Rune, so they get a pre-game 3-inch move, and then combined with the Thane BSB on Shield Bearers, who has a great weapon, Rune of Confusion, which combines with the Rune of Hesitation, so that if you charge them in the front, you don't get the charge bonus, such as lances or impact hits, and you don't get any initiative bonus for charging either. So good combo. He's also got Master Rune of Grungni on the banner, and a Rune of Battle. So another Rune of Battle. And he's also got the Rune of Gromril for 2-up save as well, and +1 strength rune on his great weapon, so hitting at strength 7, which is one of the runes that you can take on great weapons. We've got Rollhammer and Lydia in the chat. Good evening. Then what else have we got? Into the rare section, we've got the Dwarf Pony Cart of Doom. So it's actually pretty fast, with a movement of 6, and it can give a nearby dwarf unit +1 to its movement. So if you put the hammerers into marching column at the start of the game, with the anvil's extra move and the pony cart, you can potentially blast them across like 23 inches in the first turn and be right in front of the enemy, and have a decent width for fighting. Certain dice rolls have to come off for that to work, but the pony cart isn't one of them, and then that can just keep up with them somewhat because it's got a 12-inch move. And it does impact hits if it ever gets to fight anything as well. 20 Iron Drakes, and they have got the full command. They have a champion with the Trollhammer Torpedo and the Cinderblast Bombs. They've got a musician, they've got a Standard Bearer with Rune of Battle and another Stroller's Rune, so they can go forward 3 inches at the start of the game as well. So really getting up there in the enemy's face as fast as possible, which isn't very fast because they're dwarves, so it's only 3 inches. But another Rune of Battle. So we've got a Rune of Battle on the Iron Drakes, the Rangers, and the BSB, who's probably going to be in the Hammerers. So all the units are getting +1 combat resolution. There is... Let's have a look what else we've got. That is just the Doomseeker, which I already mentioned. So that's the whole army. We've got... How many points on characters? Got over 1,000 points on characters if you count the Doomseeker. We've got 756 points of core out of a 750 requirement, so just over. And out of special, we've got 641 points and 463 in rare. So the Iron Drakes are almost 400 point units for 20 of them. Rangers 538 points, Hammerers 431. So very expensive units, but these 3 units in particular are going to be fairly tough to crack as well, with the 5+ ward from the Grungni banner on the Hammerers usually. The other units have just got a decent chunk of models. The Iron Drakes have a decent save. And if I keep the units within 6 inches of this banner, they get a 6+ ward save in the shooting phase as well. So, let's go on to game 1 which is a dwarf civil war in an open battle scenario. I'm going to pull up my opponent's list right here. You may have seen this dwarf army before in some of my other battle reports. This is from a player at the local club who I've played against many a time. And before we go through my deployment thoughts, let's just look at the enemy list. So he usually has 2 characters on shield bearers, and this will be no exception. So there are 2 kings on shield bearers, both kings this time. One of them has the Master Rune of Gromril and Master Rune of, the Rune of Preservation, Rune of Might, Rune of Fury. So good defensively, can't be hit by multi-wound attacks, or has a good save against them, or is immune to them. Has a good save in general with Gromril and hits back quite well. The other one has a Rune of Smiting, which I think is the d6 damage one, and 3 runes of Shielding, which I believe are one-off ward saves. So 2 kings that are going to be very tough to crack and will hit you quite hard as well. There's a Thane with the BSB, who has Master Rune of Grungni and Rune of Confusion. There, and also, that's the gun Thane as well, so combining the BSB with the machine gun, which is going to be, I think, it's this one here, this standard bearer. And then that is Burlock Daminson, this guy, with the gun. So the machine gun Thane is actually a dude with a banner pole here. So that has, it's just the same machine gun setup as mine, accuracy, rapid fire, bursting flame, turns into loads of hits. We've got Frode in the chat as well. Does the anvil spell move 2 times work? I've heard that people wait to advance until they get it off. Doesn't the unit have to move and then you effectively have to gamble that you can cast it? Yes. So you move the unit first, and then, yeah, because I believe, I don't know whether you have to use it first, whether you have to have moved first and then cast it, or whether you can cast it first and then move afterwards. I'm not 100% sure, but I've always played it that you do the move first and then try and cast it. So there may be some ambiguity in the way it's worded. I would have to check on that. But sometimes people will just say, okay, I'm intending to move here. I'm going to try and convey it with the anvil. And then if they pass, they move the full distance. If they fail, they just get to move half. Because it's just quicker rather than trying to like wheel the unit round twice. So sometimes for convenience, or if there's something you can't physically reach without the conveyance spell, you just say, okay, I'm going to move and then try and convey. Roll the dice, and then you just get to make the full move. Otherwise, there was no point anyway, because it's the last turn and you can't reach the thing you were going to shoot. So you just don't bother making the move at all. So, it depends. Rold says, is the pony named Bill? I haven't named the pony. I should probably give it a name. Give me some good name suggestions for the pony. We've got Bill as the first one. So, my opponent also has a runesmith with 1 rune of spellbreaking, another runesmith with 2 runes of spellbreaking, who are just hanging out in the 2 units here. And the benefit of having 2 of them is that you're spreading out your magic resistance across multiple units, and you're moving your auto dispels in 2 different places as well. It's not all tied to 1 runesmith, so if that one gets locked down in combat or killed, you've still got others. Burlock Daminson, as I said, who is down there, hasn't started in the unit because there's a bit of deployment shenanigans I'm going to go through in a minute, which will explain why none of these characters are starting in the unit. Frode says, it is a bit difficult to use. It is actually possibly the most difficult of the runes to successfully cast, because you need to get a 7 on the dice to cast it, to move your unit. And even though on average you should, I see it fail a lot. That's the one I fail the most, definitely. Then my opponent also has a Demon Slayer. So Demon Slayer at 313 points, who is... where's he hiding? Down here. So the Demon Slayer has the 2 runes of Might, Rune of Alaric the Mad, so no armor saves, Rune of the Furnace, which is flaming attacks, I think, Rune of Endless Battle, which generates extra attacks if you get unsaved wounds through, and Rune of the Dishonored, so he gets the 3+ ward on his final wound. If he dies, he's not worth any victory points. If he's alive, then your opponent scores for him, so it'll be 313 points if I can avoid killing that Demon Slayer, which I will try not to kill him. A unit of 30 rangers, so a little bit smaller than mine, has most of the upgrades that mine have got. Throwing axes, great weapons, shields, they've even got a Rune of Battle as well. Crossbows. Yeah, so a very similar unit, just a few less models. Rest of the court, there's a unit of 23 Longbeards, which are hanging out in the corner over here in marching column with one of the kings in there. They're drilled, they've got great weapons, They've got a rune of passage, so they're going to go straight for that difficult terrain, because they're unlikely to die from it if anyone wants to fight them. I don't have much rune of passage, I don't have any. I've only got the rangers that can move through cover like that. And on the standard bearer, they've got rune of battle and rune of courage, so they auto-pass any fear and terror checks and such. Then 2 grudge throwers, so I don't have any artillery, my opponent's got 2, so the gyrocopters are going to go hunting. 20 iron drakes, the same as my unit, and cinderblast bombs. But I don't think there's a trollhammer torpedo on this unit, unlike mine that does have one. Some people are getting tired of the torpedo because it's so good on paper, but you just roll a 1 with it every time. Anytime you shout out the words, okay, trollhammer torpedo, throw the dice, it's a 1 every time. Lydia says, I'm thinking of starting 1000 point dwarf force. What do you recommend as a fun force to play and paint? So, I would say fun to play as dwarves. So that would involve not being just obliterated immediately. So if we were talking competitively, first of all, units that are good, Longbeards, Rangers are both very good, depending if you're going the normal dwarf list or the royal clans. You could have Longbeards in core for the royal clans. In a normal list you have Rangers. So anything you can use as Rangers, so if you can get some dwarfs with crossbows, they can pass themselves off as Rangers very easily. That's going to be your main core. Things that are fun in a dwarf list. Iron Drakes, you definitely can't go wrong with them. It's a lot of fun firing out with them. You can move them around a bit and still shoot without much trouble. And they're readily available. They're a lot of fun. Gyrocopters are fun. And gyrocopters are not fun to build, though. So be warned, they are a nightmare to build. They're okay to paint. There's a few little annoying gaps to get the brush in, but it's mostly the building of the top propeller parts, because there's a very specific order you have to put the tiny pieces in that support them. And if you have one of them slightly off, then the propeller blades are just skewed all over the place. So they are horrifically bad to build, 1 out of 10 to build, 6 out of 10 to paint, 9 out of 10 for fun on the table, I think, because they are fun, unless you play Bretonians and they blow the horn and you can't fly and you can only move 2 inches. Then they're 1 out of 10 to play. Anvil of Doom is definitely fun as well. Doom Seekers are fun. Yeah, if you see the word Doom, that's usually a sign that something is going to be fun. Rold says, very cool, this is alive. Greetings from across the pond in Canada. Yes, so I only got back from the event like an hour ago. And I'm just diving straight in there before I eat or do anything. While it's all still fresh in my mind. 5 games. So, the enemy Iron Drakes, they also have the Master Rune of Hesitation, by the way. So anyone that wants to charge them in the front is not going to get any impact hits and such, which won't bother me. A nice cinematic shot over the shoulder of the anvil, looking down at the blurry enemy lines. Over the Iron Drakes. Over Bugman's cart, the Gunthane. So let's go back to the wide chart and talk about deployment strategy now. So, there were some shenanigans going on here. We both had a ranger unit that can scout. And you'll notice that my opponent does not have any heroes in the ranger unit. That's because I won the role to put down my scout unit first. And I saw where the enemy heroes were. Suspected that the rangers wanted to go on the hill or just hanging out of the deployment zone somewhere around here. And then the heroes would join them in turn 1 or 2. So I went 12 inches away from the characters, meaning that the ranger unit wouldn't be able to go in front of them. So the rangers would have to go in the deployment zone and not on the hill. So I've kept them off the hill by deploying my scouts there. The reason the gyrocopters are out wide is because they're the first thing I deploy. I put 1 on each side and then I see where the enemy is going to put their stuff. And then when it gets to the war machines, I then see, okay, I'll put a second one over where the war machines are, because that's what they're going to do. They're going to go and try and hunt down the grudge throwers. The anvil on the hill gives it a good view of the battlefield. There's not too much to concern it in this game apart from grudge throwers that could land a hit directly on it, potentially. Other than that, it's not too concerned. The hammer is in the middle because they're just going to go phew, like a rocket right across the table at the start of the game. If I get the first turn, hopefully they'll be like right there. They are going to get shot by a lot of Drake guns and crossbows, but they'll have their 5+ ward by then, hopefully. And my rangers have got the chance to either take some shots at cover, or they can move up onto the hill and threaten the enemy flank. The Iron Drakes can move up 3 at the start of the game as well, which they have done, and they're going to advance on the enemy as well. This is obviously a kill zone. 2 very strong shooter units of the enemy. But if I can push in there and don't get wiped out and get into combat, If I can get my rangers in and the hammerers into the same targets, that would be nice. And the pony carts are going to advance alongside. The Doomseeker is just going to head straight to the enemy and see if he can tie up an entire unit shooting for one turn, or if they just ignore him. Road says, I built 6 copters and 3 bombers. I kept messing the blades up. Yeah, it's just horrible. You have to fit them over and over again until you're absolutely sure it's correct. Lydia says, I've got some avatars of war ranger models that I was excited to paint. I was thinking of some cannons or organ guns. So, cannons are not very good, unfortunately. They're inferior to Empire cannons in every way. And they just don't do enough damage. They can hit fairly reliably, and you can have engineers to reroll misfires on them. But they don't do enough damage when they do hit. On average, they just do 2 wounds each time, which just isn't enough. Like, even in a cannon-on-cannon battle, the dwarf cannons lose, because on average it takes ours 2 hits to kill enemy cannons, and it takes enemy cannons 1 hit to kill our cannons. So we just lose that battle. Organ guns are fun, though. I've run a lot of organ guns. I've used 3 organ guns. I think I always have a good time with them. It's just fun rolling the 2 artillery dice for the number of shots. They are not good. I think that would be too strong. And they also compete with Iron Drakes for rare slot. So they're not as good as Iron Drakes, but they are fun. So I'd say you can have an organ gun in there. It's going to be fun. You probably want an engineer, because you want to be able to reroll one of those misfires, or reroll ones to hit on a unit as well, you can do, if you haven't used it for that. So, organ gun, very unlikely to blow itself up as well, because you're rolling 2 dice instead of 1, and both of them have to be misfires before you roll on the table. So very unlikely to explode, so that's fun. So let's go into turn 1, and it goes to the evil dwarves. So the enemy longbeards have moved up into the terrain, and one of them gets killed by the terrain, despite the rune of passage. 2 grudge throwers launch out their rocks and kill 1 gyrocopter in turn 1. That's not very friendly of them. So definitely showing they are in fact evil dwarves. The rangers, I do really like the paint job on all these dwarves, by the way. It's a very nice, even though they are evil, because they're not mine, they are very nicely painted. Very nice and clean. Similar style to mine, I would say. Nothing too ridiculously fancy going on, just very clean, some nice little highlights all over the place. That's kind of the style that I go for as well. Slightly more modern basing than mine. So the rangers, I don't think they do too much, just a couple of hammerers dead. We've got Becky in the chat. It is hot, red hot spicy dwarven action that could cure any ailment. That is true. So not much shooting success in turn 1, but we are 1 gyrocopter down. So turn 1 for me, what am I going to do? This gyrocopter is going to go all the way up here and then shoot something, and then next turn maybe charge a grudge thrower. Everyone else is just going to go pew, like a rocket all the way across the table as fast as they can go. Turn 1. So the Thunderers that are holding down this flank shoot off a few, or a couple of Longbeards. I'm not sure exactly how many. The gyrocopter moves up, ready to charge the grudge thrower next turn. The plan is that I charge this one, and then overrun into the second one. So that's why I've gone the full distance. And the clatter gun actually killed a couple of the Longbeards as well, because it can march and shoot without penalty, which is nice. The Thane of Doom with the handgun also shot at them, which is why they lost so many, because he doesn't suffer any penalties to shoot them. So they've lost quite a few of that unit, the Longbeards. They're not actually facing this way, they're just in marching column, and it's easier to just swivel the tray round when they face the right way in a minute. The King actually did not stay near that unit, he's actually gone behind the Iron Drakes as they go forward. But the Demon Slayer is right there. You can see the hammerers get blasted across the table, the anvil enchants them as well, or enchantment is used to let them re-roll saves, represented by the skull, and then gives them the extra movement so they move across the table and go wider. So here's something I learned about drilled. It's actually more complicated than you might think with a line, because when doing a manoeuvre, even though it's free, each model cannot move more than twice its move characteristic. So once you've gone this wide, it actually becomes difficult to expand the ranks even more unless you've got the pony cart nearby. Because if you've only got 6 inches, that guy might not actually be able to reach that spot there, and then this guy might not be able to reach the spot there. So you can only like add 1 to that side, because you have to do it evenly. So you can't just keep expanding over and over and over and over endlessly with a line with low movement. So the pony cart does actually help you add more with drilled as well. Rold says, so many mass shooting armies lately. Players just wanting to fire guns seem more like 40k. I don't know if shooting is particularly overpowered in the old world, though. I think combat is king when you look at the big flyers that get into those shooting units and just eat them. I think knights, certain knight units are underpowered because of shooting, like Bretonian Grail Knights are just overcosted and they don't survive long enough against shooting because they don't have enough wounds. So shooting is too effective against certain things, but I think that's the issue with the knights, not the shooting. I think if elite cavalry had 2 wounds each, I think that would fix it. I don't think you need to do anything to fix shooting, because I don't think it's as powerful as close combat, especially because close combat you get to do it in every turn as long as you're stuck in. Shooting, you're only doing it on your own turn unless the enemy intentionally charges into your shooting unit to allow them a stand and shoot. So, I'm right up in the enemy's face. I'm going to take a big round of shooting, but I do have my ward save BSB in the front rank. So, one thing to mention with the hammerers, because they're in marching column, with this number of models, you can't displace the command group, so the BSB with the ward save banner can't start in the front rank in marching column. So they make the first move, and then when the anvil makes the second move for them, they then put the BSB into the front rank. If you fail the conveyance spell, he's stuck in the back rank, and they're stuck right here with no ward save. So it is a risk, and against mega long-range shooting armies, I would probably just start them a bit wider and not worry about marching column and walk a bit slower just so I have the ward save up. Because certain things you don't want to go into without a ward save. So gyrocopter from that flank is heading over here. Going to go round the back of the enemy and see if it can get anything done there. So you can see I'm mostly focused on the longbeards with my shooting and got quite a good result out of it. Enemy turn 2, so the Iron Drakes and the Rangers start blasting away, or they're going to start blasting away at the Hammerers in a moment. Here they go. And killed off 4 Hammerers with the Rangers. Then the Iron Drakes fire, and they kill off another 5. So this unit is now not quite decimated, but they're not doing well. They've even got reroll saves and a 5+ ward, and they still lose that many to all these shots. But that's about it for the turn. They're just standing still, shooting me. So, what is my plan now? Do I want to charge the Iron Drakes? No. If these Hammerers charge anyone, they could actually get wiped out from the stand and shoot. So they are not going to charge anyone right now. They are going to move towards the Rangers, and I'm going to try and pulverise the Rangers with my shooting a bit. And the pony cart is going to move forwards. It's going to move into a position around about here, as you'll see in a moment, because what I want to do is block some of the line of sight of shooting from the Iron Drakes, so it's going to be more difficult for them to hurt the Hammerers. I don't trust the Hammerers to win a combat on their own now, so they're just going to start going this way, either multi-charge when the opportunity arises, or they're going to try and just stay out of trouble. So I think a stand and shoot would kill them now. Other than that, my Iron Drakes are going to start trying to keep up with the rest of my army. Turn 2 for me. So, the Anvil and the Machine Gun Thane of Doom and the Thunderers whittle down the enemy Longbeards even more. The Rangers shoot into the enemy Rangers and kill a few. The Hammerers redress their ranks a bit, get their armour even more buffed this time, so they're now on +1 to saves, which is going to make them very difficult to hurt now, so they're on 3 up rerollable saves, and they have a 5+ ward, so that should make them a bit of a tougher nut to crack. Pony Cart gets right in front of the enemy lines, just blocking them a bit. And the Doomseeker goes into the woods. I think I might have attempted a charge into them first, actually, but failed it and just end up in the woods. And there we go. It's going to be a quick game at this rate. You can see the gyrocopter got into the flank of the enemy Rangers and fired in with the clattergun as well, to no real effect. The gyrocopter at the top there charged into the first grudge thrower, killed it, overran into the second one, living his best life. So, enemy turn 3. The Demon Slayer charges the Pony Cart and makes it. And the Rangers and the Iron Drakes are just repositioning themselves a little bit. If the Rangers want to shoot my Rangers, there's going to be cover, because some of them aren't on the hill, so you can't see the whole unit. If you want to shoot the Hammerers, it's going to be difficult to actually see them with some of these guys on the end as well. So limited shots. So the Demon Slayer kills the Pony Cart, overruns into the Hammerers, so next turn is going to be able to attack them. I'm not overly concerned though, because I've got a 5+ ward save. I've got the ability to issue a challenge with one of the regular Hammerers, and he doesn't have a huge number of attacks. And I've got a good static combat resolution because I've got a BSB and a Rune of Battle and a standard and a close order unit and potentially a rank. So I might well win the combat anyway. I don't want to be stuck there against a Demon Slayer for the whole game. I also want to keep challenging because I don't want to accidentally kill him. I would rather he's just alive at the end of the game. So I don't want to even attempt at some point to turn around and fight him because that's just going to cost me points. So into my turn 3. Big Butts charges the Longbeards, who elect to flee away from him, so he doesn't make the charge, but they are running now. And the Gyrocopter is going to fight the Grudge Thrower this turn, but doesn't actually kill it in one round. My Iron Drakes get closer to the enemy lines, along with the shooting from my Anvil and the Machine Gun Thane of Doom. They kill a big old pile of enemy Iron Drakes. The Demon Slayer kills the champion, but you can see I win the combat. So the Demon Slayer is going to have to go back 2 inches. There we go. And that means that I am not going to be stuck in combat anymore, because even though he's unbreakable, you would still give ground. And because the Rangers are right there, my Rangers are right there, there are options for charges now. I can charge the Hammerers in with the Rangers. The stand and shoot would be minimal, because I'm too close for the crossbows, so it would be throwing axes. And not all of them can see the Hammerers, so they might not even want to target them. They might target the Rangers, who have got their armour buffed by the Anvil of Doom. So, turn 4 for the enemy. Yeah, the enemy Rangers could charge me, but if you charge the Hammerers, you give them more attacks, so they probably don't want to do that. Actually, did I lose the combat? No, I think I did still win. But because it's the enemy turn next, then I did actually follow up into the Demon Slayer. That's the plan. Yeah, so if it had been my turn next, then I would have wanted to be free of combat. But I want to be locked in combat so the Hammerers can't be shot. So that's why I elected to follow him this turn. But it'll be the next turn that I don't follow. Turn 4, the Longbeards rally and turn to face the demons, the Doomseeker again. Some of the characters get out of the Iron Drake unit or move around behind it because they want to charge the Gyrocopter in a minute. The enemy king is thinking about getting out of the Ranger unit. And I was very excited when I saw that as an option, but my opponent decided not to in the end, and I think that was the right call, because otherwise you get double charged and obliterated, I think. The reason these 2 units can theoretically charge each other is because you don't have to fully close on the unit you're fighting when you charge. So for example, if the enemy charge in here, they could wheel, touch me, they couldn't close because they're also touching the Hammerers, they'd form a line like here, and then it would just be a disordered charge, so you wouldn't get your initiative bonus. So that could hurt you, potentially. It also means you'd end up in combat with the Hammerers. However, if I do it as part of a double charge, I'm not dragging any other units in there with me. So I would make a disordered charge, which isn't that big of a deal, and the fighting rank... models in base contact in the fighting rank would be minimal, but all my guys only have 1 attack each anyway, so I don't mind about that. So I'd be in a line like this. Not quite touching, but loads of them could still fight. You can see I'm resisting the line hammer urges so far. Rather than a pencil line, we're going for more of like a thick marker pen here. We've got Frode says not 40k, more like Napoleonics. Yes, lines of guns, not quite 40k. Wood Elves like to play 40k, Lizard Men as well, because they have lots of skirmishing shooting units. So they are more like 40k. The enemy Iron Drakes, let's see, the Machine Gun Thane actually popped out the back of the unit and shot the Gyrocopter, but didn't kill it, which is nice. And they kill one of my Iron Drakes as well. Oh, by the way, I've got a new catchphrase for Linehammer. You ready for this? You know the initials of the old world, TOW? Toe the line. Boom. Instant merch top seller. I need to put that on some merchandise, actually. I might do that immediately after this video. Okay, so you can see the Demon Slayer is forced back, and I pass my restraint test to turn around to face the Rangers. So I'm now going to be charging, double charging. So if my Rangers make it as well, it's going to be a fun time in combat. We are going to be up against an enemy king who is not bad at all. Very beefy. My turn 4. The Doomseeker charges into the Longbeards, And let's see how many there were. So he does actually kill a few. Wins combat, but not enough to finish off the unit yet, and they don't break. The 2 gyrocopters are in there shooting away, and one of them finishes off the grudge thrower this time. So, the hammerers. They drill out 2 extra width, charge in, the rangers make it into the enemy rangers, do loads of damage, and they end up off the table, which is a delight. And yeah, we're looking good. Killed a massive unit of enemy rangers and the king that was in there as well. Very tasty. Look at all that combat res that's been built up. So the enemy got 11, and I got 18 combat res with all my fighting ability. So that was very spicy. The rangers were more survivable than usual because they have +1 to save and re-rollable, which is why they only lost 2. The hammerers only lost 2 as well. So very nice. Pretty much game over, yes. So it just depends what my enemy can kill now, because this unit of hammerers is still worth a lot of points. If they die, that could change things, but I have got the expensive king as well. So with the way this event is scored, I think it's done by number of wins first. So after that, then it's down to the difference in the wins. So if you take, for example, a 20-0 and you kill a couple of units and you turn it into a 16-4, that's quite a big deal in the leaderboard at the end. So, the enemy turn. What does my opponent have in mind here? Because my rangers are so large and unwieldy, they can't actually escape this idea, which is the Demon Slayer charges them in the flank. If the Demon Slayer forces them to fall back in good order, they die, because there's no way for this line to fit there without touching the edge of the table. So, hopefully that armor buff can keep them alive, even though it won't against him because he doesn't allow armor saves. So he's just going to have to do badly on his attacks. I'm going to have to pass my leadership test and hopefully just give ground, which will keep me on the table. Fall back in good order and they immediately die. But they don't have any characters in there, so they're not as expensive as the enemy rangers. The king charges a gyrocopter, hoping to overrun into both of them because of where they've ended up. The Demon Slayer does get in there. Enemy king gets in. The Iron Drakes turn round to start shooting at my hammerers. And they knock it down to just the standard bearer. We've got Bad Squiddo in the chat. Woo Old World, yes, your favourite game that you play routinely. One day. So we've got one hammerer, standard bearer left. So as it stands, that unit is giving up 25% of its points. The Demon Slayer. I end up passing the leadership test, because I don't take that many casualties, only 3. And pass the test, only give ground 2 inches, not enough to reach the table edge. So the unit is alive for now. And one gyrocopter dies, the king overruns into the next one. So if you came for purely the lines, you're going to be disappointed, because this was way less of a line at the start. It's just the fact some of them have been getting killed. And this isn't much of a line either. The two Iron Drake units looking at each other are somewhat line-ish, but not much. More than half the unit is double thickness. And what I wanted to tell everyone, actually, double thickness lines. So, it's a psychological ploy, which I'm going to tell everyone who I'm ever going to face about this tactic right now, so no one will fall for it. But if I've got a unit of, let's say, 20 that want to shoot you, if you go 20 wide, then I get more shots, which is great. But when the enemy looks at that 20 wide unit of Iron Drakes, for example, they think, when I'm in my turn, I want instant rewards. It's 20 wide. If I kill 5, that means I'm only facing 15 shots next turn. That means my actions this turn are having tangible consequences in the next turn. So that's very exciting. That's something I'm going to do. If you put in a second rank, if you put 5, for example, in the second rank, 15 on the front rank, the enemy, when looking at that, they may well think, you know what, if I shoot them, I might kill 5 if I'm lucky, but that's not going to affect what comes back at me the next turn. So I'm going to start looking for other targets and look at something that directly affects what happens next turn, because that just feels good when you make a move and it affects what comes back at you in the following turn. So if you take away that, psychologically some people look at the unit and think, well, I'm just going to put less resources into shooting them, because what's the point? Because I'm not going to limit what they do for a while, so I'm not going to start committing to it now. And sometimes they do, sometimes they put even more into it because they think, psychologically, I want to kill enough so that less attacks are coming into me next turn. So it starts messing with their target priorities. So psychology behind having a second rank in the line there. Something to mess with, and depending on what kind of player your opponent is as well, and what kind of rewards they're seeking, and who you want to be shot at. If you want your line to be shot to make it more of a tempting target, then maybe you do go full width, because then the enemy will see it as a tempting target to reduce the attacks coming back, so they might start shooting at it, even though there's something else that you want to keep alive more. So, there you go, a little psychology nugget for you there. Frode says that's exactly how I think. Well, there you go. If you're one of the players that sees a back rank and thinks, well, you know what, I'm not going to shoot that, then this tactic would have worked on you. Jammy says, looked like from photos of the TSN event there were some big blocks of infantry. Does 3,000 points suit them better? Well, when you say big blocks of infantry, I can tell you now that there was one unit of Chaos Warriors with characters in it that was 2,600 points in one of the armies. So, mega points denial. I didn't get to play against it, but I can tell you, in one of the games, it was charged by a dragon that caused terror, and they fled off the table in turn 1. So that is the downside to running a 2,600 point unit. There are other lists in the event with bigger units as well, like 40 plus models in them. So, turn 5 for me. Iron Drakes get their armour buffed. Iron Drakes shooting against Iron Drakes is so ineffective because they just give each other a ward save against the flaming attacks. But I do have the slight edge because I've got Burlock Daminson in my unit, which means that I'm not suffering -1 for long range, so I've got the slight edge. So I kill off some more Iron Drakes, which is nice. The Hammerer and the Thane BSB are running away from the enemy. The Rangers reposition themselves a bit. And yeah, you can see that I'm actually further away from the edge now. And yeah, because I think, did I actually win combat? Yeah, I think I won combat against the Demon Slayer because he killed 3, but I had a banner with the Rune of Battle, a rank, and a musician. So I think I won and pushed him away, so I was able to move a bit away from the table edge. He's got another chance to do it though, because I couldn't rotate far enough to get him in the front, so if he charges me and makes me fall back in good order, the unit still dies, so he's got one more chance to do it. The Doomseeker and the Longbeards are continuing their battle. And turn 6 for the enemy. What can they do? Can they finish off any of my units? The Demon Slayer. So the Demon Slayer, it looks like he won't die, so I'm going to get over 300 points for him as well, because he's not dead. The Iron Drakes put everything they've got into the Thane and the Hammerer. The Longbeards and the Doomseeker are still fighting, to no effect. My turn 6. You can see, by the way, that the last Hammerer, the Standard Bearer, made its ward save against the attacks from the Iron Drakes. So that is very nice. Turn 6 for me, the Doomseeker and the Longbeards just don't kill each other, so my enemy is going to score 85 points for the Doomseeker being alive. And I don't finish off any of the units, so that's going to be the end of the game. So with the massive unit I killed, what else? What did I get? I got one of the Kings, the Ranger unit. Burlock Daminson, I think, was in that unit as well, and a Runesmith. So all those points, and over 300 for the Demon Slayer not dying. And my opponent gets 85 for the Doomseeker not dying, and killed all the Gyrocopters. And the Pony Cart, and I think that's it. So it's a 15-5 win for the Dwarves. Yes, it is 3,000 points this tournament. Tristan says, line it up. Yes, so next game, even more Dwarf Civil Wars. So it's another Dwarf Civil War against someone who I hadn't played ever, and then at the last few events we just seem to be coming up against each other non-stop. So this is fellow YouTuber, if you're familiar with Dawi After Dark, very distinctive looking dwarves with snow speckled all over them and their bases. So, what is in this dwarf army? Because it's quite different to mine, but there are some similarities. So let me just pull that up here. Just cracking open the army list on the BCP app. Okay, so this is a royal clan list that I'm up against here. You can see that it's Mountain Pass, by the way. So let's look at the opposing army. We have got a king on shield bearers, Rune of Smiting, which is the D6 damage one, Rune of Gromril, 2-up save, Rune of Preservation, immune to multiple damage. Anvil of Doom, which is the same as mine, toughness 10. A Runesmith, who is hanging out in here somewhere, who has it's the Runesmith BSB actually, who has Master Rune of Grungni, Rune of Battle, and Stroller's Rune. You get extra runic allowance in Royal Clan, and 3 runes of spellbreaking. So combining the BSB and the Runesmith into 1 saving points. There is the Machine Gun Thane of Doom, but not the same as mine. Instead of the Rune of Bursting Flame to do extra hits, this one has the Rune of Slaying. So that's obviously been built for things like monsters, because there are going to be lots of monsters at a 3,000 point event, but not that great against me. 45 Longbeards. The unit without any characters in is already 763 points. They're drilled, they have great weapons, heavy armor, shields, champion, Rune of Passage, Standard Bearer, Rune of Battle, Stroller's Rune, and Rune of Courage, so they won't run away. So there's 2 runes of battle in the unit, 1 on the BSB, 1 in the unit itself. So they have a static combat res of +7 before you do any attacks or anything. Special, there's a unit of 17 hammerers right there, so smaller than my unit of hammerers. They are drilled, they have a champion, Standard Bearer with Rune of Confusion and Hesitation. You can afford to put both of them on a hammerer unit in Royal Clans without the BSB, because you've got the extra runic allowance, so you don't want to charge them in the front. Pony Cart of Doom at the back there, same as mine. 2 lots of 17 Iron Drakes, so smaller than my units, but they're both drilled. One of them is drilled, actually, the other one isn't. They both have Trollhammer Torpedoes, Cinderblast Bombs. One's got Rune of Courage as well, which isn't going to be relevant in this game because I don't have anything that causes terror or fear. Optimus says, is this the same tournament that the Dwarves won the other day? This tournament is this weekend, so I just got back from it and immediately fired up the video. But this guy, Mr. Dowie After Dark, fellow YouTube legend himself, he has won a lot of events with this army. Not this exact list, because this is 3,000 points, but he does win events routinely with points denial. So he'll have a massive unit of Longbeards with a load of characters in, big unit of Iron Drakes and a toughness 10 anvil, and not much else, and there's no real easy way to get points off the list. If you start trying to kill the multiple ranks of Longbeards, you may get there eventually, but the anvil's going to be constantly buffing them up. They've got a 5-up ward. Very tough to get through with that many models, so very good points denial list, and he's done very well for him. So, my setup, let's go back to the wide shot again. What is my plan? If I go into blocks in this game, I think I just lose. Because the enemy are just going to be better and outgrind me, because this unit with 45 models in it, none of my units can take that on in a straight up fight. So, here's what I've been reduced to. Lines. I want to maximise my stand and shoot and maximise my attacks back, because if you're not wide, after the enemy kill like 8 of your models, you just don't get to hit back at all. Whereas if you're super wide, you then get like 20 attacks back. So why wouldn't you do this in the current rules? There you go. So I'm not planning to move much anyway. So I'm just going to invite the enemy on, shoot them up as much as I can, enter this kill zone, Iron Drakes, crossbows, Anvil of Doom, Thunderers on the hill, everything just blasting away at that unit, trying to whittle it down as much as possible so that when they get in, they may do damage, but I'm going to be able to hit back because I'm so wide. And my plan for the gyrocopters is not die, because if I pop out, the anvil kills them or Iron Drakes shoot them. So they're only going to pop out when it's the opportune moment for them to do so. And things that they might want to do include preventing the enemy from fanning out with drilled. So if they pop out and land next to the enemy, they can't then declare a charge and go super wide and then charge in. So if a gyrocopter lands next to you, you can't become wider. You could maybe add 1 rank to the other side, but not to this side, because the gyrocopter is going to be blocking it. We've got roll the initiative in the chat. Yes, this is round 2. Both won round 1. Heading into round 2, Dwarves versus Dwarves. Similar lists, we've both got a unit of hammerers, we've both got pony cart and iron drakes, but my opponent has this massive unit of longbeards, I've got a large unit of rangers and some gyrocopters. So in terms of confidence level for this game, it's not 0, but it's not high, because I've got units that are easier to kill than the enemy. I think if this unit of longbeards gets in, they'll eventually kill something, and I'm not convinced I will kill any enemy units during this game. I don't see where the points are coming from. So, let's see. Okay, into turn 1, which goes to me, so I do get a chance to start blasting away before the enemy advance. And that's what I'm going to do. So, I start firing with my rangers' crossbows, kill a few longbeards, whittling them down, not too many, and that's it for the turn. Only 3 casualties. By the way, I've got my hammerers behind the rangers, so what's going to happen here? If the rangers flee, they'll go through the hammerers, and that means they can't be mown down by the longbeards, because it's very possible the longbeards will win combat without wiping out 33 rangers. So what's left will flee through the hammerers, and then if they want to continue, they will charge into my hammerers then and give me extra attacks. So that's the point at which I think I can do good damage to them. The point at which they have to charge into me because they fail to restrain and have to overrun into the hammerers. They might choose to overrun anyway. And the hammerers will be, each turn I can potentially go wider with them a little bit. I've got the pony cart here to give them extra movement, so they can fan out a little bit more. Not much though. Then I've got the BSB in with the rangers, by the way, because I want to give them the ward save because they're on the front line and they're going to be shot at. I don't need it for the iron drakes because they already get a ward save against flaming attacks, which is most of the enemy shooting. I'm going to make a point of not going within 27 inches of the enemy anvil because I don't want to be hit with the magic missile. Into turn 1, so I did that small amount of damage. Into turn 1 for the enemy. You can see the longbeards in marching column marched up as fast as they could. The anvil fails to convey them further, so they're stuck there in front of me, so they can't charge in turn 2. That's good, I'm going to have more time to shoot them. But they do have now +1 to their save and re-rolling saves because of the anvil. And that's the turn. So not much accomplished. But my turn 2, let's see what I can do with my shooting. The iron drakes take out not many more longbeards. My rangers decide instead of shooting at the longbeards, which have got now re-rollable 3-up saves and a ward save, let's shoot the hammerers next to them instead. And completely obliterate the unit down to 5 models, I think. So that is hilarious. Crossbows just poking through that hammerer armour, and that unit is now useless. Their reliability now, if they move forward, they die, so they have to hide, or they just give away a lot of points, that unit of hammerers now. You don't need an inch between units for your own forces at deployment. I don't think so, no. I think you just have to keep an inch between your units and enemy units. So, the Doomseeker is currently being ignored, by the way, and he's now gunning for those iron drakes. But in the enemy turn, the longbeards are now right in front of me. And the hammerers are hiding behind the woods, so I've got potentially another turn to finish them off with shooting. Otherwise, I'm not scoring much for them because there's 5, which is more than 25%, so no, that's not worth any points right now. So, the Iron Drakes, they shoot the Doomseeker. They decide it's too much hassle, let's just get rid of him now. Forget the points, just get rid of the Doomseeker. It's going to be more effective than shooting at Iron Drakes. So this is perhaps the psychology of having the second rank in the Iron Drakes. Because the enemy Iron Drakes, when they look at them, they think, what are we going to get a reward for? Killing this Doomseeker, we don't get points for it, but it stops him charging us. Shooting the Iron Drakes, there's no way we're killing like 7 or 8 of them, because of the 5+ ward against flaming attacks, and we're at long range. And some of them will have cover as well, because of this unit blocking. So you're just not going to kill enough to have any immediate rewards, so why not just kill the thing that's a more immediate threat? So, there you go, psychology. Turn 3 for me, so what am I going to do? I've got one more turn to blast these guys to smithereens. Or, do I double charge them with a massive line of rangers and iron drakes? Spoiler alert, no. I decide I'm going to shoot them instead. So, on my turn, the gyrocopter flies out and lands next to, like right here, next to the enemy longbeards, which means that they can now not become wider with drilled when they charge me next turn. I shoot up some of the enemy iron drakes with my iron drakes. And I whittle down a few more longbeards with shooting. The enemy hammerers lose 1 because the rangers use their... I don't move because I use my throwing axes or crossbows. Can't remember which one, but kill another one. The gyrocopter popped out to use its clatter gun to try and get the points for them, but did not, so that may well get shot to death now, or charged by hammerers. And the reason why I'm not concerned about that is because I was thinking I could just flee. But there is actually a caveat in the rules that says in Mountain Pass, flyers can actually flee off the edge of the table on the long edge, and I didn't know that existed until the next turn. So they do get charged, the Longbeards get into the Rangers. This is going to be a total bloodbath, one way or the other. But you can see they couldn't go super wide because the gyrocopter's there. I also positioned the Iron Drakes in such a way that if they overrun, they have to go into the Hammerers. Which is what I want, because the Hammerers are now nice and wide, ready to swing with those mighty hammers at the enemy if they want to overrun into me, with extra attacks, double attacks with the Hammerers. Hammerers will go up to initiative 4, the enemy will not get an initiative bonus because of the rune banners. And... or is it? Yeah, I think it's the no initiative bonus is the Rune of Hesitation. Is it? Master Rune of Hesitation or the rune... because one of the runes is on this guy and one of them's on the Hammerers. I can't remember which way around it is now. Let me have a look. So, on the BSB, he has got the Rune of Confusion, so they make a disordered charge. They don't get their initiative bonus. So you would get your initiative bonus going after the Hammerers, but because they're wielding great weapons, that means we'd strike at the same time, I think, then. Which is okay by me, because I still get double attacks with the Hammerers, so I'm going to have a lot of attacks. So the enemy have killed a gyrocopter, a ranger, and a doomseeker so far. And the Hammerers kill off the gyrocopter, although I have got the unit down to below 25% now, so they are worth some points to me. And if I can finish off 3 of them, that would be worth a big chunk of points as well. But they're obviously going to run away at this point, because that would be silly to attack. Because the scoring in the old world, if you're about to die, the best thing to do is just hide and preserve your points. So you can see, this is what happens. The Rangers fall back in good order after combat, after we threw loads of attacks at each other. The enemy win 13-11 in the combat, and they then overrun into the Hammerers, so this is going to be a total swing fest. Turn 4 for me. So the Hammerers, they didn't do too badly, but they didn't do too great either. They lost by a little bit, and then they fell back in good order through the Rangers and the pony cart, and then they overrun into the pony cart. And you can see that this enemy unit of Iron Drakes is down to 4, and is fleeing, by the way, because I shot them so much with everything else. They're now running away. And they are 4 models left, which is below 25%, which means they need a double 1 to rally now. Which is hilarious, because the chances of them reaching the edge of the table by the end are very slim. But I will score lots of points if they're fleeing at the end, though. This is the enemy Machine Gun Thane of Doom, who's just hiding now. And not much happens in that turn. You can see the pony cart dies. They then overrun again into the Rangers. Turn 5 for me. The Iron Drakes start blasting. The enemy Iron Drakes don't do a huge amount. In combat, the Rangers fall back in good order again after combat because I lose 15-11. So I'm getting good combat res here because I'm swinging back and doing good damage. So the units just keep falling back in good order through each other, and my opponent might run out of time to finish off these units. My opponent chooses not to overrun into the Hammerers because you're just going to give them loads of attacks against you, and their ranks are starting to get thinned. So it just wants to shoot the Hammerers up instead with this big unit of Iron Drakes that are now in range. So they actually move back a little bit to make space for the shooting. And into the enemy turn. The Iron Drakes flee, and they roll like 11 on the dice. So they're actually doing their best to get to the edge. They're getting pretty close. And that's it. So the shooting from the Iron Drakes is wholly ineffective against the Hammerers. They only kill like 1 or 2 of them. So kind of a waste of a turn. Into my turn 6. So I've got one chance to try and kill this Thane. I've got a gyrocopter that can hop over here and try and shoot it. And my Machine Gun Thane can hop to here and try and shoot it as well. I'm not going to go within 27 of the enemy anvil, because that would be nuts. But I'm going to take the chance to try and kill that thing. I'm also not going to charge into the Longbeards, because I don't want to give them more time to kill me. So I'm just going to shoot them with, like, the Anvil of Doom. So, I shoot as best I can. I do 1 wound to the Thane. Don't kill it. Don't do too much to the Longbeard, sadly. Enemy turn 6. The Iron Drakes that were fleeing reached the table edge. They rolled another 11 on their flee roll, and they just reached the edge with their tiny little dwarven legs. They're so eager to flee. Great. Then in combat, the Longbeards charge into the Hammerers, but they do not manage to kill them, and I fall back in good order. Still with 5 intact, which is not below 25%, so no points for that. You'll notice that I've lost my Runesmith, by the way, because that was in a challenge, I think. After I lost my Ranger Champion, I then sent the Runesmith in, because otherwise I could have had my Ward save sent to the back rank if I refused the challenge, you see. So the Runesmith is also dead earlier. The Machine Gun Thane of the enemy fails to kill the Gyrocopter. The Iron Drakes failed to kill my Thane. And that's the end of the game. So there was a beautiful round of 45 seconds when I thought I'd won the game. And then I remembered the Runesmith had also been killed because he was hiding amongst the pile of dead Rangers, and I didn't spot him for a minute. And then, after we remembered he had been killed, but we then calculated it's a draw. So I got points for getting the Hammerers down to 25%, killing the enemy pony cart with something. Oh no, I didn't actually, it's hiding up there. I didn't kill that. The Iron Drakes fled off the table. My opponent got points for Gyrocopters, pony cart, and a Runesmith, and that's it. So it's a draw. So a win and a draw to start the tournament, both against Dwarves. Going into round 3 against the filthy, disgusting Empire gunline. Now, is it any more disgusting than a Dwarf gunline? Probably not, but I think it is better. I think Empire cannons are better. They've got better range. They've got strength 10. They have got D3 plus 1 wounds instead of D3. The volley guns are just better than organ guns because they have 3 artillery dice, so it's even harder for them to blow up, I think. Or is it easier? Can they blow up if they roll 2 misfires? So it might be easier, but it's just the extra shots they get, and they can use the engineer's ballistic skill, which is an outrage because dwarves can't use the engineer's ballistic skill. So, very good war machines. What is the list I'm up against here? Let me just pull that up right now. So, actually this list, this Empire list is called Ban the Green Knight. And I can understand why, because the Green Knight would be pretty good against this, I think. Lots of war machines for the Green Knight to just eat, and then keep coming back to life and eating them again. So, there is a General of the Empire on a 2-headed griffin, which is over there. And there's 2 Generals of the Empire on griffins, actually. They're both on Imperial griffins. One of them's got loads of upgrades, though, like the Silver Horn, Potion of Toughness, Healing Potion. I think this is the more expensive one. The one over here, let's get the close-ups, actually. So this one, on the left, has the Talisman of Protection. So they've got some nice saves going on. But they're not anywhere near the level of like a Chaos Dragon in terms of survivability, but they are pretty good still. There's a level 4 wizard with Illusion and a Lore Familiar and 3 Power Scrolls to get those spells in. So the spells you want to worry about, I can't necessarily remember the names of all of them. There's one that stops you charging. Is that Mirage, perhaps? That means you can't charge and it reduces your movement. There's Crystal Column, which you can place in front of a unit so they can't see you and then can't charge through it. So 2 ways to block the enemy moving forward towards this gun line. So my confidence going into this game is 0 out of 10. The last game it was like 3 out of 10. This game it's 0. I do not think I'm going to be able to get anything done here. I'd have to get very lucky, get the first turn, get the Anvil's conveyance spell off, and get right into the good stuff immediately to have any chance. And I don't think that's going to be possible because there are enemy scouts right in front of me. There's a General of the Empire on foot with a Ruby Ring of Ruin and the Dragon Bow. There are 3 engineers with grenade-launching blunderbusses hanging out with the war machines. There are 2 lots of 10 Empire Knights that are drilled, stubborn, standard bearer, musician and champion. 12 Empire Archers, 7 Empire Archers times 2. 3 great cannons, a steam tank, and 3 volley guns. So the steam tank actually makes it a 4th cannon, and that's as good as a dwarf cannon, the one on there. So, if we look at the wide shot, I'll tell you a bit about the tactics for this game. The tactics are, I don't want to consolidate everything in one place. I don't want to get flanked by the big flyers. And also, this is, the original plan for this event was to have 4 games, not 5. So at the start of the day, Mr. Rob, the TO, said, we're looking at 4 games, but if everyone finishes the first 2 games in good time, we can try to squeeze another one in on day 1. So we'll just look at the clock and see what time it is, and then decide from there. So we did have enough time to have a 3rd game, but my opponent, I think, was probably in a bit of a rush, and I thought, actually, my army is ridiculously fast. So I'm just going to see how fast I can play my turns and keep an eye on my clock, keep an eye on my phone, and see how long it takes me to do my turns. And I'm going to try and blast through my turns as fast as possible, because all I'm going to do is move forward and shoot. And then if I get there, I'll charge. There's not going to be too much shenanigans going on. It's just very straightforward, moving forwards to my units. So I think I can get my turns really, really quick. Because I'm used to playing games on chess clocks with Kings of War anyway, so I can play fast. I play online chess as well, which the only way I win that usually is on time, because I'm not actually that good at chess, but I can play fast. So if someone else is being slow, I can just win by that method. So I think I'm good at playing fast, so I'm going to try and blast through my turns and get the game done as fast as possible. So my deployment strategy is to just fill up the whole table, so I'm not getting flanked and I don't have any scouts landing behind me. And then zoom forward and get into combat with my hammerers, blast across the table, kill things, move forward, shoot everybody I can, and get my gyrocopters into the war machines and see how it goes. The other way of playing fast, which I also pondered, was just putting up lines behind this piece of impassable terrain. 1 unit there, 1 unit there, 1 unit there, anvil and all the easily killable stuff hiding behind them so they can't be targeted by any of the war machines. But that would not be a game of Warhammer, that would just be a complete garbage fest. So we're not going to do that, and we're just going to charge towards the enemy instead. Here we go. So, turn 1 goes to the enemy. So the knights immediately decide they don't like the look of running towards 20 Iron Drakes, so they go into marching column and start running away. Odd Griffin and the other knights do like the look of this flank, where there's only thunderers with great weapons, so they are going to go this way. And you can see this unit of skirmishers that was put down right in the path of the hammerers, so I'm not going to be able to yeet them just in a straight line towards the enemy. And then lots of shooting, so the pony cart and the anvil get hit by cannons, but they don't die, thankfully. The rangers take a small amount of casualties as well, just 2 from shooting. The Doomseeker gets shot to death as well. And a load of Iron Drakes get killed from volley gun fire. So that's not good. Turn 1 for me. Let's see how fast I can do it. Gyrocopters land in front of the enemy, they're going to shoot, and then if they're still alive, they're going to charge war machines. Same for the other one on this side. The hammerers go up as fast as they can. I fail the conveyance spell, so they're stuck in marching column. Pony cart's moving up alongside them now. The rangers, they turn round on the hill because they don't want to get charged in the flank by anything, and they're not too worried about shooting yet. They will do some. But if the enemy wants to go in there and then advance on the rangers, they're going to have to advance into the front where they're going to eat some stand and shoot. So this is now the defensive section of the board. This is the offensive side where everything's just going forward as fast as they can. Turn 2 for the enemy. So my whole turn there took about 3 minutes, I think. Maybe 4. So the enemy archers the wizard is in with the archers actually. Tries to cast a spell, so I stop it. I'm trying to stop the spells that will like stop me charging or anything that's horrible like that. So the knights and the griffin on the left flank declare charges into the thunderers, but the knights don't make it. They don't roll high enough. The griffin does make it in. And I think with my shooting previously, I might have killed a couple of knights with stand and shoot. Have I killed them yet? I don't think I've killed any knights yet, actually. They're still at 10. There's 2 back there. They had to go narrower to fit through the gap, you see, with the Griffin. More shooting with cannons and such. So the anvil is dead. The volley guns open fire as well. And after all that, you'll see that all the gyrocopters are dead as well. Gyrocopters dead, anvil dead. So yeah, my confidence level being 0 for this game is justified, because I don't think there's much I could do different. Wherever I positioned the anvil, something was going to be able to shoot at it. Unless I don't want it to participate in the game and just keep it alive and preserve its points. But that's not very exciting. I want the offensive capability of the anvil, which is to send this unit blasting across the table, which obviously they can't do now because it's dead. One of the Griffins is actually showing some ambition and goes into the middle of the table. I could start shooting at it. The Thunderers actually do some wounds back to the Griffin on this side, but they do flee. And my opponent pursues, but rolls like nothing on the dice. Rolls like 4 with Swift Stride, so somehow doesn't catch them, which is hilarious. And into turn 2 for me. So let's have a look at the wide shot here. So the Hammerers would like to start going through this gap. There's a crystal column there, so I can't walk on that. They're going to go through this way and try and look for a fight against any of this stuff that wants to stick around. The Rangers are going to be able to shoot something, possibly the Knights. And I'm not worried about this Griffin at all. If it charges them in the front, it will not end well, because there's a lot of them there. If it charges the Hammerers, that gets them into a fight, which is what we want anyway. So the Hammerers going through this way as best they can. The Iron Drakes and the... oh, so the Thunderers just failed to rally and ran off the table, which is funny. And into the enemy turn. So I didn't do much in that turn, just a bit of wriggling about. So you can see the pony cart is going for the enemy war machines now, as a last resort. Enemy turn, Griffin goes into the Rangers, which I'm quite happy about actually, because it gets them into the fight. The Archers are just spreading out a bit to get out of the charge arc of the Hammerers. And volley guns start blasting away. They don't accomplish too much. They do kill some Hammerers, but not many, because I do have my ward save in there. And Rangers versus Griffin, I get some wounds in. The enemy don't kill too many, but then I fall back in good order. So, a little bit disappointing with the counter-attack from the Rangers, didn't do more damage. However, look at that. It's got 2 wounds remaining now. I think actually it was on 6 from the stand and shoot. Yeah, so I spoke a bit prematurely there. I then did another batch of wounds, and yeah, I actually got up to 6, so I did more damage to it. And it's got 2 wounds left fighting Rangers, which is not the best position to be in. And what's this? The Empire Wizard rolls a double 1 and miscasts and sets off a giant template which kills half of his own archers. You know what I say to that? Good. That's what we like to see, a bit of crazy miscasting action. So, the Knights are both Griffins into the Rangers, so it's probably not going to end well for them, but they do have maybe a chance to finish this guy off. Everyone else is just going backwards away from the Hammerers as fast as possible, hiding behind the terrain. And there's really no way for me to reach them. So maybe my strategy of just lining up all my units behind a piece of terrain would have been wiser, because I don't think I'm going to get into a fight anyway. And so the Rangers are killed. So it's definitely going to be a loss. It's just a question of whether I can find anything to fight by the end of the game that can't outrun me, which is a probable no. Turn 4 for me, the Iron Drakes are able to shoot the Knights a bit, not much, kill some of them because they're hiding behind this piece of terrain. The Hammerers are making their way very slowly towards the enemy as well. Turn 5 for the enemy, so yeah, my turns combined are not taking up much time. I'll tell you what the total time was that my turns took at the end of the game. So, turn 5 for the enemy, and just more hiding going on, getting away from the Hammerers. And all these other units, instead of potentially getting killed, they hide behind the hill. Turn 5 for me. Iron Drakes do some shooting. Hammerers move a bit, but they're very slow because they've had Miasmic Mirage cast on them, so their movement is reduced. So nothing happens. Turn 6 for the enemy. More hiding and more shooting with War Machines, doesn't accomplish anything. Turn 6 for me. Move forward, can't get any charges in. Pop out, try and shoot the knights, and do actually finish off the knights, which were hiding back here. The machine gun thing popped out and finished them off, so that was nice. So I got a few points on the board there. Other than that, not much happens. So, the game, which was, I think the whole thing was almost 2.5 hours. My turns, how long do you think they took? Because I was trying to play as fast as possible, trying to break the land speed record for Dwarf play. My turns combined took 19 minutes. There you go. So I think that's pretty damn fast for 3,000 points. Most of that was me moving forward, the Trollhammer Torpedo rolling a 1, and then saying, okay, over to you. So you can see why it was so quick. Okay, then we move on to Game 4. And there are no such constraints on this game. I don't have to try and play as fast as possible. Technically, I didn't have to. In Game 3, my opponent actually said, just play the game, you don't have to rush. But I decided to anyway, just to see how fast I could do it. Okay, into Game 4, and we're up against another Empire gunline. So after day 1, we've got a win, a draw, and a loss. So it's perfectly even because it was a 15-5 win, a 10-all draw, and a 15-5 loss. So on day 2, can we improve upon that? It's another Empire gunline. This is an army that I actually played against very recently at an event, but obviously it's 3,000 points, so it's been expanded, and this is command and control for this central forest. And what is in this Empire list, I hear you say? Let me pull that up right now. So we've had 2 Dwarves in a row, and now 2 Empires in a row. And this is Game 4. If I can actually find it. There we go. So this Empire list has General of the Empire on a baby griffin, which has slightly less wounds and a few other things that are lesser than the regular griffin. Let me find the close-ups of the opposing army so I can show you. There are walrus cavalry, so there's the griffin. There is a priest of Ulrich, who has... what's the spell he has? He has some bound spells. I think he's got an assailment and oaken shield. There's a captain of the Empire, who is somewhere around here, with... oh, it's the battle standard bearer. There is an Empire engineer, 2 of them, one with Hochland long rifle, one of them with pigeon bombs, which are hilarious, and you get sportsmanship points immediately just for bringing pigeon bombs in a list, because they're so funny. Level 4 wizard on a Pegasus, which is there, and... actually, no, that's... yeah, there is 2. There's 1 level 4 on a Pegasus and 1 on foot. They both have battle magic, so potentially 2 pillars of fire. Then in core, we've got 34 veteran state troops there, so a nice big unit of those. Nearly 400-point unit. They've got a charmed shield, griffin standard, 2 units of 7 Empire knights, which are the walrus cavalry, so they're very cool as well. Then there are 3 great cannons, 2 mortars, which are not good, by the way. Mortars are not a good choice. Great cannons, very good. Then there are 2 units of 5 Empire road wardens, which are like pistoliers, so they're quite good. Shooty cavalry. 5 Teutogen guard with big hammers, full plate armour. So they're just an elite infantry unit, so they're quite good, and they've got the priest of Ulrich in there as well. Rare units, 2 units of 5 flagellants, who are pretty much just chaff. There's not much that they're going to accomplish in this game. If we go back to the wide shot, let's look at my tactics. So, this side of the table is being held down by the massive unit of rangers. I think even with just this unit, I think I've got a good chance at actually killing a lot of stuff over there. This side, because there's no volley guns, and they're the main threat, I think. The hammerers are ready to just burst forward. Unfortunately, first game of the day, so I'll put that down as the excuse. I accidentally deployed my hammerers too far away from the pony cart to get +1 movement at the start of the game. So that's sad. I also deployed the hammerers in a position where the anvil can't give them a move buff, can't make them move twice, and also hide from cannons. So I've left it out in the open, but in a position where not all the cannons can see it. I think that one, I'm not sure if that one can. That one definitely can, as long as these guys move out of the way. But the one on the hill doesn't have line of sight to it. So I just hit it from 1 or 2 of them, but not all. So it could get cannoned off. It's not a guarantee, though. You have to actually hit, not misfire. then you have to land it in the right place, you have to then roll a 4+ to do a wound, and I have to fail my 5-up ward, and then you have to roll the number of wounds. So, on average, it would take 2 successful cannonballs that make it through all that steps to kill the Anvil of Doom. So, I'm fairly confident, but not very. You saw in the last game what happened. So, into the Rangers are out here, the Thunderers holding down this flank. Enemy Knights, if you want to advance towards Thunderers, you may well get shot. If you advance towards the Rangers, you're getting shot. This side, enemy Knights. Surely they don't want to tangle with the Iron Drakes. That would be a bad time for 7 Knights. This unit of Iron Drakes is just a nightmare for them. They've also got the Gunthane and Burlock in there, so they're not suffering -1 to shoot at long range. And the Gunthane has to be in a unit because cannons are around, and otherwise he'll just get a cannonball probably straight to his face. I've had to start my BSB in the unit, but I am going for marching column because I don't think the enemy shooting is significant enough for me to not take that risk. There are no volley guns. Cannons can, if they hit a lucky shot from the front, if the enemy just moves out the way first and fires a cannon through here, you could possibly get a few hammerers with it. And I wouldn't have a ward save up, but that's a risk I'm willing to take to get closer to the enemy because I want to fight that unit, I want to kill that big unit, and then I want to start killing the war machines with the hammerers. So, into turn 1, which we've got even pictures of the spell cards. And we've got a Pillar of Fire. We've got 2 Pillars of Fire, by the way, so that's the Nightmare. We've also got Curse of Arrow Attraction, which is quite good. Oaken Shield gives a ward save. Fireballs are always nice as well. And the bound spells, Oaken Shield, Hammer Hand, which is the Assailment, and Ruby Ring of Ruin. So, with my Vanguard moves, I've moved up everything a little bit, including the Gyrocopters and the Doomseeker, who's got just enough space to fit through there, past this impassable wood, because it's command and control, and at the TSN, all the central objectives of command and control become impassable. Turn 1, so the Empire are going first, so Oaken Shield is cast onto this unit of state troops. Curse of Arrow Attraction on the Rangers, because they're going to get shot. And advancing on my Rangers with the Tutagen Guard and the Knights. They lose a few from shooting, but not too many. The Anvil, I think I made a ward save against a cannonball, which is what that 6 represents, which is good. And we've got a Pillar of Fire right in front of the Rangers, though, which is not good. And another one over here, which also isn't good. We don't like the Pillar of Fire at all. And one of the enemy mortars is upside down to show that it can't shoot next turn. I wouldn't condone putting your models upside down because it might chip the paint, but there you go. So that rolled a misfire and can't shoot next turn. The other mortar blew itself up, I think. Did it? Let me see where the other mortar was. Yeah, that mortar is just dead. Blew itself up with a misfire in the first turn. Living the dream. Score 1 for the Dwarves. Turn 1 for the Dwarves. So, the Thunderers shoot down some of the pistol cavalry. The Gyrocopter charges into the flank of the Flagellants. I just want to keep them locked in combat so it's one less thing to charge into the Rangers at once. And the Hammerers move up, but I fail the Conveyance, so they're stuck in the I almost called it the Purple Sun then. In the Pillar of Fire. So I had to take some dangerous terrain tests. I did lose one of them to that. But I was quite happy to just walk through it anyway. But I failed the Conveyance, which is important, but I have got reroll saves on the Hammerers from that, but they don't have their ward save up because the BSB is not in the front rank yet, so they are actually facing that way. It's just convenient to just flip them around when the time comes. Gyrocopter gets into the enemy's face so it can maybe charge a cannon next turn. The Iron Drakes are moving up, ready to shoot something. And the Rangers shot at the Tutagen Knights and killed quite a nice chunk of them. So I've got this Gyrocopter landed all the way over there behind enemy lines and shot up some of the pistol cavalry as well. So getting right in amongst them with Gyrocopters, they're going to have to deal with them. Into the enemy turn, the Pillars of Fire do... This one causes a little bit of misery. And look at all these charges. So we've got a... Is that on the Mini Griffin? charging into the gyrocopter. We've got cavalry, we've got tutored knights, we've got other cavalry, and we've got the heavy cavalry on walruses, all of them charging into the rangers. So I will stand and shoot against something I think I can get the most combat res from, and probably going to be these knights, or these cavalry, because they don't actually have a very good save, they're just light cavalry. Or, if I wanted to get more shots in, and potentially harm a unit severely, maybe them. And this guy charges into the gyrocopter. So this is my wound rolls with my stand and shoot. So I wounded with one of them, on 3s with all those. Wow, wow, wow. Gyrocopter gets charged. The 2 light cavalry units get in, the walrus cavalry don't make it. And I only kill one of this unit with my stand and shoot, and the foot knights get in as well. So we'll see how that goes. I get 1 point from stand and shoot because of that terrible wound roll. I was hoping to just wipe that unit with the stand and shoot, which on average looked like could have easily happened there. Also, another thing to factor in is which unit is closer. Are they within their range so that you can't use the crossbows, and would you then have to be on throwing axes? So, enemy shooting is going to start flying off now. Let's see if they can get rid of the other gyrocopter. Yes, cannoned off. Pillar of Fire is not doing too much at the moment. Gyrocopter killed by the general. And the other gyrocopter is killed by the wizard and the flagellants, who then overrun in this direction. They're stuck behind their own lines though. On to the big combat. So the Rangers win 11-9 on combat res. Got some good kills through. And the Knights fall back in good order. These foot Knights do not though. They give ground, which we haven't taken a picture of here because we forgot that they're supposed to bounce off at this stage. But we fix that in a minute. There they go. So, my turn 2. So I'm going to shoot everybody. The Thunderers in a nice blurry picture. Lovely picture of the top of that roof though. They blast away at the Walrus Cavalry and kill one. My Rangers decide not to charge anybody. They just shoot. And they kill more of the Knights, I think. The Hammerers get to go wide now because they get to move. And they're now right in front of the enemy. There's not much wider they can go though, legally. So they could add more to that side next time, but not super wide anymore. Pony cart's heading up there as well. My machine gun Thane of Doom blasts the Walrus Cavalry over there and a Trollhammer Torpedo, and they're down to 2 models. So that Knight unit might as well just hide now because they're just going to be giving up points if they do anything. Into the enemy turn. All the charges into the Rangers again. Stand and shoot. Into the Flagellants. Kill 3 of them. So 3 on the combat res already. The big Walrus Cavalry unit does make it in. 1 Flagellant gets in, and the Teutogen Guard make it in. The enemy general is hiding behind the woods. And the enemy get 1 inch away from the Hammerers, but they're not charging me. They're just waiting in front so they can still shoot me. So Cannonball kills some Hammerers. And in combat, the Rangers actually lose this time. It looks like I've lost 10-9. So, decent damage on either side. Rangers getting whittled down. Into my turn 3. The Thunderers shoot again. And who do they shoot at this time? I don't think they specifically did much here. You can see the Hammerers do charge into the state troops this time and win 11-7 combat res. Push them back, but not far enough. And the Iron Drakes turn round because you can actually see the enemy cavalry that I said should probably hide. Let me see if there's a picture of them. Did I not get a single picture? I don't think I did. They actually came down here to try and get out of my shooting arc, but all I had to do was just turn around a bit. Enough of them to shoot and kill the unit. So finish them off because they didn't hide, so they paid the price for having too much ambition. Let that be a lesson to you. Play boring Warhammer where you just hide behind buildings and you've got a higher chance of winning. So they're dead. Points on the board for them. And this combat is going to keep rumbling on. Turn 4 for the enemy. So actually they do Let's see. So the units are actually separated now, because they wanted to stand off and then charge in again. And they are going to declare those charges. I think, what was the reason for it? Because I did get a stand and shoot with my throwing axes. So I can't remember what the specific reason was to not follow up. I think it was so they could count as charging and get +2 initiative bonus. That could be why. Because if you just follow up after the give ground, then you don't get any initiative bonus, I believe. The Iron Drakes get hit with a cannonball and lose loads of them. Because I've had to go so wide to get so many shots in, it means I'm now open to flank cannonballs. So they're heavily whittled down, and wounds onto the heroes, so they're going to have to hide. The Rangers are actually winning combat, even though there's only 4 left. And I finished off the Flagellants, and that Knight unit is down to 1. So the enemy actually have to give ground away from me. The Hammerers beat the State Troops block again, and they fall back in good order off the table through the cannon. And then I overrun into the cannon. My turn. Cannon gets killed by the Hammerers, as you'd expect. I had a dilemma here. I thought, do I try and overrun off the table? Because if I don't make it, then I get cannoned through the flank. So I thought it was too risky to try and make the table edge there. So instead I just decided to reform at the end and turn round. So I'm only going to have one guy cannonballed at a time. Because if I leave the table, obviously I can't be shot for a whole turn, which is great. But I wasn't confident of making that overrun. Iron Drakes and the Gunthane are running away, but you can see that Burlock Daminson is actually killed with artillery. So the ultimate insult, he gets killed. And I shoot off the final Walrus Cavalry with my crossbows there. Next turn, we've got the remaining Tutagen Guard and the Wizard charge into the remaining Rangers. I do some stand and shoot though. Did someone else join in? I think these Flagellants actually joined in and I killed them with the stand and shoot. So 3 combat res. Yeah, this is turn 5. So the War Machines unload and kill the Thane who is in that unit as well. So I've only got 2 Iron Drakes left there. And you can see the Pillars of Fire, fresh Pillars of Fire up, going after the Hammerers. The Rangers do get killed off in the end. Turn 5 for me. The Thunderers don't do too much. The Iron Drakes are just hiding out of range of, or out of sight of as much artillery as they can. The Anvil wants to magic missile, but doesn't succeed with it. The Hammerers just move towards the enemy. And look, we've got a human hand in action there. And in the enemy turn, the enemy general charges into the Anvil, but it's toughness 10, so you're very unlikely to do anything, but it's probably worth a go. And doesn't do anything. Pillars of Fire don't do enough to finish off the Hammerers, but do whittle them down a bit. And then in my turn 6, I try some shooting, but not enough to finish off any units. So, that just a random shot of my army there. So that's the end. So what a total bloodbath. Loads of stuff killed on both sides. And, first of all, it looked like I'd won, but then remembered actually the Hammerers have been knocked down below 25%. So stick them on as well. Stick 25% of the Hammerers on. The Iron Drakes have as well. So that is a draw. Another draw to start day 2 against the Empire. And this game, I think my turns clocked in. It was below 30 minutes for my turns. Out of like, how long was the game? I'm trying to think how far into lunchtime it went. It was, I think it was more than 3.5 hours game. I got my turns in, I believe, under 30 minutes. Which I think is quite impressive. I'm just trying to play like a lightning beast with these dwarves. It's a simple army to use. It's not fiddly at all like other armies. Just big units, move them up a bit, shoot something, charge something, throw some dice at the enemy, and that's it. So, looking at the final game of the day. So, we are up against the Bretonian exiles, or Bretonian textiles as I like to call them, just because it sounds mildly amusing. So, what is in the Bretonian exiles list? Going into the final game on 1 win, 1 loss, and 2 draws. This is... Let me just get it onto the right page here. Which is thankfully not being slow. That's good. Okay. Bretonian exiles. There's a Baron on a Royal Pegasus with the Falcon Horn, which means that passing leadership test... I think the Falcon Horn is one of the most feel-bad things in the entire old world. I don't see why it exists in the form it does. Not only is it totally uninteractive, it's just the enemy taking a leadership test and none of your units can fly. It's incredibly harsh against certain armies and others just don't care about it. So anything with flyers that have slow movement stat. So gyrocopters, they have a high fly move, but their movement is only 1. So it particularly punishes gyrocopters. So you're down to movement of 1 if it goes off. It's a leadership test, but it's a leadership test that you can re-roll. So the enemy take a leadership test, they have to pass one of them, of the 2, and then nothing in your army can fly. So if I get my Bretonians finished, I'm definitely going to put it in my list because it's just good. But it's just weird. I don't know why you would put something in the game like that. It's like an entirely negative thing. It doesn't do a cool thing, it just shuts down cool things. So it's just an odd thing to have in the game. It's like having spells that stop the enemy charging. It's not making cool things happen, it's preventing cool things from happening. So anytime I'm designing any kind of game, I try not to put anything in it that is purely negative. Okay, so let's go through what else is in there. The Green Knight is in there. The Green Knight who is able to pop out of one of these 2 pieces of terrain. You'll notice my deployment is very weird in this game, by the way. I'll go into that in a moment. Frode says, what happens if a gyro is in difficult terrain when the horn is blown, it's stuck? I don't know if... Does it specify that it stops them flying? Okay, it's not reducing their movement. Does difficult terrain reduce your movement to a minimum of 1? Or does it just reduce your movement in general? Saurus Blood says, as an Exiles player, it feels like you need to take it. Yes. It's so good that it's an auto-include in the list. It's just a badly designed mechanic, I think. It's purely a negative play experience to have the horn in existence. But I think you have to take it because it is good. There are other things in the game that are purely negative as well that people have to take. I would say a triple save is purely negative because that's also denying cool things from happening. Yeah, like armor save is at the low end of the spectrum when it comes to feel-bad mechanics. So, I totally forgot the horn exists as well, which will explain part of my deployment in a moment. There is a Baron on a Royal Pegasus as well, 2 of those. One of them with Falcon Horn, one of them with Charm Shield, Gauntlet of the Duel, so you can't refuse the challenges, and that one's the General. There is a Wizard, level 3, on a Warhorse with Lore Familiar, Battle Magic, so potentially Pillars of Fire. There's a Paladin, Battle Standard Bearer, on a Warhorse who is in with Knights of the Realm. 2 Sergeants at Arms. There is a unit of Mounted Knights of the Realm. I think there's 9 of them who are joined by a Mounted Paladin. They have a banner that... Let's see, which one is it? They have some ability. It might be on the BSB, actually. Whatever it's called, that means you can't stand and shoot against the unit. So that's very powerful against my army, because my stand and shoot is like half my output. There are 2 units, or 1 unit of 5 mounted yeomen. Where are they? Where are they hanging out? I think they're behind this piece of terrain there. There is... I think I've got some close-ups of this army, actually. Yeah. 2 units of 12 peasant bowmen. 1 there and 1 over there. Yeoman Guard, 24 Yeoman Guard, so the infantry there, which are the very cool old Bretonian men-at-arms models, not the plastic ones, these are metal. So when I think Warhammer, that's the kind of unit I'm thinking about. Like metal dudes from the 90s. They just look cooler than everything else in my opinion. And they've got the usual upgrades. There's 2 units of those actually, 1 there and 1 there. So a very cool army. There is Unit 4 Pegasus Knights. And they are joined by one of the heroes in there with them. And then there are 3 bombards, so cannons that are not quite as good as a great cannon, but less likely to have a horrible accident than a great cannon, I think. but you can't have engineers, so they're more likely to misfire, obviously. And they're just better than a dwarf cannon because they do more wounds. So every army in the game has better cannons than dwarves, which is frankly an outrage. I don't know why dwarf cannons aren't just better but more expensive to account for that. They're about the same price, but bad. And then there are 3 trebuchets, which are catapults that have strength 5 on the bit of the template that's not under the hole. So the high strength, they don't have much AP though. And obviously, because you don't have engineers in your army, you can't reroll any misfires on them. So not that accurate and could potentially kill themselves. So, that is the list. I had to get a close-up of the Bretonian knights because they were painted in individual heraldry, which is the standard as far as I'm concerned. If you're not doing that, then you're missing out on cool points for your Bretonians. You don't want to go the new GW way, which is to paint them all the same, which is a snooze fest, in my opinion. So let's look at the wide shot and I'll tell you my bizarre strategy for this game. So, I've got all my units in a two thick line on the right hand side. Why? Well, I think if I just go wide across the table, I'm going to be open to the Green Knight killing me for a start. He's going to get into something that he can kill. He's going to get into the pony cart or gyrocopters, and I'm going to have to kill him a couple of times, probably over the course of the game, and he'll just eat things. He could get into the Iron Drakes, he could get into the Thunderers or the Rangers that don't have magical attacks. They have decent combat res on those units, but the Green Knight could probably do enough damage to not die himself and tie them up. So the Green Knight is a reason I don't want to be around here. I don't want to corner camp because that's boring. Even though it might be effective, I'm also going to get bombarded with artillery for the whole game. So I want to get in the opponent's face as fast as possible, just get everything forward as fast as I can and blockade the enemy. Now, the Gyrocopter's Vanguard moves, I moved them in front of my hammerers, forgetting that the horn existed. So the fact that they can't fly, ever, is going to just block me up. So I'm going to have to use drill to change the layout of my troops before I start moving. I haven't gone in marching column because I want my ward save because I'm going to get artilleried in the face. So I've just gone quite wide, too deep on all my units, and then I scouted my rangers as far forward as I could. So I'm just going to go down this side. All my characters are over here. The amount of points I've got on this side is I've got a gyrocopter and thunderers, which is less than 300 points. So I'm hoping that the enemy would commit all their flyers over here to try and kill that, which means they're far away from the anvil, who is hiding right in the corner of the table over there, just over 2 inches away, in case he gets into a combat and has to give ground, so he doesn't just immediately go off the table. He would get another go. So hopefully this is good bait, that the enemy will send some nice fast flying units over there, and they won't bother the rest of my army, where all the points are, who advance, and then try and sweep down the enemy line where all the weak stuff is, the peasants and the archers and the artillery. So that's the plan. And also, as I'm advancing, I'm not going to have cannonballs shot through the lines because this terrain's in the way. So that's covering my advance. I'm going to swing round here and go sweep through everything. That's the plan. Probably end the game about here, hopefully killing some of the units on the way. Let's see if it's enough. So obviously the gyrocopters is just a mistake on my part, forgetting the horn existed. I think mentally I just block it out of my mind because it's so depressing. So I've got the BSB and the runesmith in with the hammers. That's going to get the runesmith closer to the enemy faster. So, turn 1 goes to the enemy. So they are, what are they going to do? Oh yeah, there's me pointing out the gyrocopters can't fly with a thumbs down because the horn's been blown and it was passed on the reroll. So I think, what could you do to the horn to give it the same sort of effect but make it fair? Reduce enemy flying moves. Get rid of swift stride. If you wanted to, because that's an effect that you could get off, which limits the enemy a little bit, but doesn't totally cripple them without any interaction. If you want to keep the same effect, so that you just get rid of flying entirely, you'd want to make it something interactive. So you force the enemy to make some kind of test before they can make a fly move. A leadership test would be too easy to pass, so it wouldn't be great for dwarves, but maybe an initiative test. So a gyrocopter has like a reasonable chance of passing a test and being able to fly, like probably 1 in... what's the initiative of a gyrocopter? Is it 2 or 3? Let's have a look. Initiative 2, so it's a 1 in 3 chance of passing the test. So I think that would be a fair compromise, because then some of them would be able to fly sometimes, and it's not totally non-interactive. How about that as a compromise? Frode says, make it only work within command range. That would also be fair. And yeah, make it once per battle would also be a good compromise. Make them make tooting noises if they want to stop your flyers moving, or tests per fly move. Yeah, there should be an aura or some kind of test or limited use. It should have something in there, more interactive or a less severe effect, one of the two. Or both. So, the knights are moving forward, and this gyrocopter is also going to be stuck here now, by the way, because it can't fly, so it can only move 2 inches. The Pegasus knights moving into the middle. And it's a bit of shooting from the cavalry over there, the mounted yeomen. And a trebuchet actually scatters off the hammers onto a gyrocopter and leaves it on 1 wound. Other than that, not too much. A couple of rangers get shot to death. Not much effect. The trebuchet crew take a wound after a misfire. And so does this one of these bombards. So that's okay. And we lose that much from shooting in the first round. I can live with that. The yeomen then retreat because they have the rule where they can shoot and then run away. Rode says if they bring a literal horn they blow, I'll be okay with it, as is. That would be more acceptable. Turn 1 for me. So, the Doomseeker is just getting closer to the enemy. And I did have to remind my opponent in turn 1 that the Doomseeker has a 12-inch charge range, so you don't want to be within that, because they were just in range, because my opponent didn't realise the Doomseeker had an extra D3 on the charge. So, a gentle reminder never goes amiss. The gyrocopter is moving closer to the enemy. Here's my plan for the gyrocopter. It's probably going to get charged, because it's kind of blocking them reaching the Thunderers. I don't want them to overrun into the Thunderers. So I don't want the gyrocopter to get charged and hit and overrun. So what I'm going to do, when it gets charged, is I'm going to flee, and I'm not going to use my swift stride, so I'm going to hope that I roll low and I stop, like here, right before my own unit. That way, they would have to continue the charge, mow down the gyrocopter, and then stop in place, so I'll get another turn to shoot them. Because I'm not going to have any stand and shoots against this unit anyway. You can see with my shooting, it looks like I've killed 2 in the first round. So that's not bad. So I can kill another 2 with another round of shooting. And then if I flee so far that I actually pass my own unit, then I could add swift stride to it and get even further. So that then if the Thunderers get charged as a result, if they just fall back in good order, for example, they wouldn't reach the gyrocopter probably, so it would be safe for the time being. But ideally, I want to just flee and end up like here. Turn 2 for the enemy, because you can see I've moved up as fast as I can with everything, but because of the... let's go back and show you. Because of this mess down here, the gyrocopters meant the Iron Drakes had to go backwards, so the Hammerers could then reform, basically, redress their ranks and then start moving. So they have to go less narrow so they can fit past the stupid gyrocopters and then start moving forward. So I've moved everyone else forward as fast as they can go on my turn. So the Rangers are getting right in there, the Hammer is getting up there, the Iron Drake's going to start moving next turn, the Pony Cart's keeping up as well to give the extra movement to the Hammerers. Turn 2 for the enemy. So it works out exactly as planned. I rolled really low on my flee. The Knights caught the gyrocopter, it dies, but then they have to stand there. The Pegasus Knights charge into the Doomseeker. And I can live with that. The Peasants advance on the Rangers, which is surprising. So we'll see if they actually want to fight, though. You can see I've got the buffed armour with that token there, which is the reroll saves on the Rangers. So a few more Thunderers are shot down by the enemy as well. And there's a pillar of fire coming for them as well, which is not nice. The Doomseeker is killed, and I forgot to do his death blow, actually. Just remembered now. It would have only done 1 wound at best anyway on the unit. So I've got 1 more turn to shoot at this lot before they charge the Thunderers. But again, this is kind of working out perfectly. I was really hoping the Pegasus Knights would not go this way. If they'd come this way and like hid behind the building, then they stay as a threat for the whole game. So I can't advance the Iron Drakes too much because I have to protect the anvil. because all of them would probably beat the anvil in combat. Even though it's toughness 10, they'd probably get something through on a 6, and then probably wouldn't take wounds back because the anvil's not that great at fighting, and then maybe win the combat and over 2 rounds nudge it off the table. So we don't want that to happen. Turn 2 for me. So the Pillar of Fire doesn't reach me yet. Shooting, take out another 2 knights. Rangers attempt to charge the peasants who flee, and I don't quite catch them. So just move forward a bit. So I don't know whether they were baiting the charge. It was a risky move, because being charged by a dwarf potentially could have got caught there. The Hammerers move up, Iron Drakes move up. The 2 gyrocopters just hiding behind this building so they don't get hit with enemy bombards, because they can't fly anyway because the horn is repeatedly being blown. And turn 3 for the Bretonian exiles. Not much is going on. I'm keeping an eye on on my phone clock for my turns again, so I'll let you know how fast this game was at the end and whether I broke my record for speed. So the Plague of Rust is cast upon the Rangers, which is going to reduce their armor save by 2, which is not nice. Charge is declared into the Thunderers, who can't stand and shoot because everyone's too close, and I can't against this unit anyway because of their banner. Everyone crunches in, and they're going to start killing. Pillar of Fire killed 1 first as well. My champion dies in a challenge, and I take a few wounds, and they're dead. So they get wiped out, but not much else. The shooting isn't being very effective. They're like killing a Hammerer and an Iron Drake maybe, or a Ranger each time they're shooting the bombards. They're not that great when the lines aren't side on against them. Turn 3 for me, so I attempt another charge onto the peasants, and they hold this time, but I failed the charge. They rallied last turn, by the way. So had they failed to rally, the direction they were going, they would have actually gone straight off the table. So if we go back, they were fleeing in that sort of direction, I think. So there's nowhere for them to stop. So if they hadn't rallied, they would have been straight off the table. Same goes for if when they were fleeing, they'd rolled a little bit higher on the flee. So they're alive, and now they're not much of a threat. And because of the angles of the units now, if I do make a charge into them, their flight would not any longer take them off the table, I think, because of the centre of my unit. It'd be more like this way now. So it'd still bounce through a lot of units and maybe cause some panic, but they wouldn't just all explode. The pony cart moves right up to the enemy, and my opponent kindly pointed out, paying back my sportsmanship for the Doomseeker, said, actually, you don't want to be that close because you wouldn't get your impact hits. And I said, oh yeah, that's a thing. So I pull it back a bit in a minute. The Iron Drakes are moving up, and they can actually shoot at the Trebuchet, but they don't manage to do anything. The torpedo does hit, but fails to wound by rolling a 1. So, no combat yet, but not too bad. I've lost my stuff down there, but if I can mop up a couple of units here, I'm right back in it. Turn 4 for the Bretonian textiles. The enemy are going to... let's see. Oh, by the way, I think... Was it last turn there was a Wind Blast? Yeah, so my opponent got Wind Blast as a spell. I didn't realise. So at the start of the game, my Rangers were right next to the edge. My opponent had the opportunity to move the wizard out and Wind Blast the Rangers off the edge of the table, because I didn't realise Wind Blast was on the list of spells. I just didn't hear. The only thing I ever listen out for is Pillar of Fire. So me not paying attention to opposing spells almost got them killed, and my opponent not paying attention to the position of my unit meant that they didn't get wind blasted off the edge. So our foolishness from both of us just cancels out. So no effect. The Green Knight has chosen not to come on yet, because if he pops up, he'll get hit with the Anvil's magic missile, which he doesn't want. So he's going to wait and hold off until the prime moment to strike. So the Green Knight is just chilling out, being ethereal at the moment, which apparently is optional. So, enemy turn 4. The usual shooting. The Pegasus Knights are going back towards my forces, but hiding behind the woods, so I can't shoot them. And everyone else is going a little bit in that direction as well, so they can decide later if they want to commit or if they want to just stay hidden out of range. In fact, this unit with the caster, they go up, cast spells, and then retreat back out of range of any of my shooting. Giovanni in the chat, good evening. Ooh, nice number of likes on this video already. That's nice to see. This is right after the tournament. I got back and immediately started setting up this video. So it's still very fresh. The wounds of battle and the triumphs of battle, very fresh. So, because some people have just joined halfway through, I'll save talking about the results of the other games until the end from this point. So, I can tell you though that we're not on the top table. Spoiler alert. So a few more are being killed from enemy shooting, but it's just mostly ineffective. The trebuchets aren't hitting very much because they're mostly targeting units they can't see. So they're scattering, maybe landing partials and doing a little bit of damage, which I'm mostly saving. And then the bombards aren't being very effective either because they're shooting through lines, so they're hitting a small amount of guys each time. Into my turn, the Rangers actually make a charge this time into the peasants, who hold. So Rangers into combat at like the third charge attempt. And they kill a load of peasants, which is good. The peasants flee away from my centre, which is in that direction, and they stop just short of going through the cannon, because if they'd gone even further, they would have bounced all the way down the line and possibly panicked the entire army, which would have been hilarious. And then the Rangers overrun into the trebuchet. So they're going to be able to fight that next turn, and importantly, they can't be shot at by the enemy next turn, because they're in combat and you can't fire cannons into a unit that are in combat. And they're blocking line of sight to everything else. So, yep, we've got a unit fleeing, but not enough damage to get any points unless they continue fleeing for the rest of the game. Oh, the pony cart. MVP pony cart charges in to the trebuchet, kills it. The pony attack finished off the final crew member. So, pony cart kills the trebuchet. Turn 5 for the Bretonian exiles. These guys continue fleeing and they actually cause panic tests on the rest of the army that they flee through. And all of them pass, sadly. Then, not much shooting is going on. The trebuchets are continually trying to land on this gyrocopter to take its last wound, but they keep scattering away because they can't see them, so it's very difficult to land there. You would have to roll a direct hit and a 2 or 4 on the dice, because that would then reduce the scatter by the ballistic skill. So it's very unlikely you're going to land on them with indirect fire. I don't know whether you're more likely to actually just blow yourself up rather than killing it. Turn 5 for me. So, after I killed off the trebuchet, then attempted a charge into the archers, who didn't flee because they would have fled right off the table immediately. And I failed the charge because it would have gone through difficult terrain, so it's the lowest dice roll, so I do not make it. Everyone else is just moving up still, in case the enemy want to attack, but you can see the Bretonians are not very eager to attack. At the moment, the scores are quite even, because I've killed 2 trebuchets, the opponent has killed a gyrocopter and the thunderers. These gyrocopters just hiding because they're not allowed to fly, because the Bretonian is constantly blowing on his mighty horn, in full view of everyone. Turn 6 for the Bretonians. How adventurous do they want to be? Not at all, they're just going to stay back and hide. The Green Knight does pop up this turn, and doesn't attack me, just hides behind the woods. So if the Green Knight had failed his roll, I would have got the points for killing him, which would have been amazing. So I can't remember whether he was already there last turn, actually. Let's have a look. No, I don't think he was. I think it was a turn 6 attempt. So, possibly a little bit of luck there, because if you fail that roll, I think he counts as being dead. So that was a bit risky leaving it that late. So very chivalrous to arrive just to say, I am the mighty, brave Green Knight. I appear on the battlefield and preserve my victory points by not attacking anybody. Ooh, I'm very scary and ethereal. So, or was he already there? I don't know. Might have been turn 5. But he's hanging out there anyway. And then in my turn 6, the Rangers just try and shoot off a few archers. Because I don't have to worry about any counter-attacks now, I bring the machine gun Thane out of the unit so he can shoot at the Pegasus Knights, which is the only unit that's in range. And no more damage done. Ineffective shooting, so that's the end of the game. So, I get 200 points for the 2 trebuchets. My opponent gets 288 points for the Thunderers and the Gyrocopter, so it's a draw. Wow. So, drawn game. The Bretonians weren't willing to risk going into range of my Iron Drakes and the Anvil of Doom magic missile at the possible reward of killing the Anvil. That wasn't deemed as a good enough trade-off. And my strategy to push through the enemy lines was hampered by my foolishness with the gyrocopters, forgetting that the horn existed, so it was blocking my advance. And then also forgetting Wind Blast existed and not setting up my units in such a way that they couldn't be Wind Blasted through each other, because I had units that I could have blocked with. But I just forgot Wind Blast existed. And my opponent also forgot that Wind Blast existed and forgot that I could have been blasted off the table. So lots of absent-minded moments in Game 5 there, but eventually we swung around and turned it into a game of Mountain Pass, where we're just staring at each other on the short deployment zones instead. So swung round, both sides did, and the fleeing peasants rallied by the end of the game, so I don't even get any points for them, which is sad. And for anyone who hasn't seen the results of all the other games, you might want to go back to the start of the video now, because I'm going to start talking about all the results and overall thoughts in 3 seconds. And now. So, with results of 1 win, 1 loss, and 3 draws, means that I finished dead even, a 15-5 win, 15-5 loss, 3 10-10 draws. What are the chances of getting 3 draws in a 3,000 point event? There's so many points to fight for, and yet somehow we still killed within 100 of each other each time. The game against the Empire in Game 4, I was in a position to win, but the enemy were able to have a unit on the command and control area, so that's what made that a draw. And yeah, I think this dwarf list is okay actually, I don't think it's too bad. I don't know how it would stand up against an ultimate mega Death Star of Chaos Warriors, because you saw against the dwarf Longbeard Death Star I didn't really have the output to get through that. So against like 60 Chaos Warriors or whatever the number it was, some obscene amount. Because the biggest unit at the event was Chaos Warriors with heroes in, which was 2,600 points in 1 unit. And for anyone that didn't hear earlier, I did mention that it fled off the table in one of its games in turn 1 because it was charged by something that causes terror. So, is 3,000 points excessive? I think to squeeze in that many games, it might be. Oh yeah, how much time did I take in this game? So I actually broke my record, and all my turns in Game 5 were just under 16 minutes total. So, about 16 minutes of me playing the game, and we didn't quite get to the end. I think we still had like half an hour left in the round when I'd finished, of the 3 hours, but I played sub 16 minutes in all my turns. But as you can see, there was not much action there. It was mostly me moving up, the Trollhammer Torpedo rolling a 1, and failing a charge, and then maybe doing some shooting. So, very quick play. So my final 3 games combined, let's see, it was just over an hour of my turns over the last 3 games. Which I think is pretty damn quick, considering a lot of people take 3 hours to do their turns. So I think 3,000 points is too much for that amount of time, and I think people play armies that are too slow possibly as well. So I think if you're going to play a huge amount of different units that are going to be very fiddly, I think you have to take that into account when building your list. Because a lot of the games wouldn't have finished if I wasn't playing super fast, I think. So if you're going to a Mega Battles event, think about list building and how fast you can actually play your army, and are any of the games going to finish? Would be something to consider. My army was obviously very fast. Overall, I like the look of the games. There was one particularly nice looking Skaven army that had a really good looking matchup against some lizard men on the next table over. I forgot to take any pictures of it, but they looked like real, like White Dwarf Warhammer armies, like blocks of troops and everything else supporting. It wasn't like lines or Death Stars or a million skirmishers and nothing else, or a million flyers and nothing else, and big dragons and nothing else. It was like 2 proper armies against each other, and it looked really good. So if you can find any pictures of that anywhere online, you'll probably be able to see it on something on one of Rob's Honest Wargamer or Square-based streams. He'll probably have some pictures of some of the games. He might have a picture of that one, and that was a really cool one to look at. There were some very nice looking Chaos armies at the event as well. very cool looking armies at 3,000 points, but not necessarily that practical in terms of finishing the games. So I wouldn't mind seeing slightly lower. 2,500 I think would be cool as well, 2,400. The Dwarves, I think, obviously competitively struggle. There are some Dwarf players, obviously, that are just very good at the game and run very strong points denial lists and do very well with them. I don't really have, other than running the mega line, which means like proxying in things as rangers that aren't really rangers, so I'm not willing to do that at a tournament. But I could, other than run a stupidly big line, I don't have enough of one type of model to run a mega Death Star of Doom. I don't have more than like 30-ish rangers and 20 hammerers, 20 dwarf warriors, 20 iron drakes, 20 iron breakers. It's mostly in 20s. It's built for what used to be quite a big unit in Warhammer back in the 90s. 20 iron breakers would be pretty damn big. But nowadays, not particularly. So I'm hoping that they give infantry something, because I don't think lines look good. Shooting units, it makes sense to be in a line, because you always want to maximise your shots, and also be on a hill. But fighting units, I don't think should be forced into a line. And I say forced because you are forced, because big flyers and cavalry are so much faster than you, with swift stride and the ability to just move halfway across the table in one go, that if they wipe out 5 dudes in the front rank, you just get no attacks back. But if you're 40 wide, you then get 35 attacks back. So you either play with an army that looks nice and just lose, or you play an army that looks a bit silly but actually has a chance, is the way I look at running Dwarves at the moment. So hopefully they change the rules for infantry somehow, change the way missions are scored, and that gives infantry more of a role other than just die. And hopefully that'll make the armies look a bit cooler going forward. Also, because I've seen so many cool armies, and 3,000 points is very inspirational to look at, I'm kind of inspired to like rush painting my Bretonians. I'm also looking at Warriors of Chaos at some point, because they were my second love after Dwarves. The issue with Warriors of Chaos for me is that every single model they brought back, I think, is rubbish. I don't like any of the Chaos models that they brought back. Probably not even one of them. There's maybe like one Chaos champion that I like. Everything else is the era that I don't like at all. They didn't bring back anything really from the 90s, and that's when all the cool stuff was. So if I'm going to play Warriors of Chaos, I'd have to either scour eBay or find close approximations of like STLs that look kind of in spirit of the old models, which is it's a last resort really, because I like to have the classic models, but I also don't have infinite cash, so I can't pay like £50 for one Dragon Ogre, because that's not going to be an army very quickly. So that's more of a long-term goal, to have that sort of army. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. It's just going to be keeping an eye on eBay, waiting for bargains to pop up. Yep, ooh, STLs. What kind of loser would have STLs? It is definitely a last resort. And Rolled Hammer, great recap, thanks, still learning the changes. Yep, if you were playing 8th edition, main things that have changed. Mega blocks of infantry are still good, but for different reasons, because there's no steadfast anymore, which was the case in 8th edition. And it's really Death Stars are the only way to run infantry, I think, now. If you just run a nice infantry block you expect to kill things, that's not necessarily going to happen unless you go really wide and you put killer characters in there, because the front rank just gets wipes otherwise and you don't get to fight back. And rank bonus is quite limited. You can't get much bonus from the ranks now. Certain units have Stubborn, which only lasts for 1 round, which is kind of like Steadfast used to be. It's very similar, actually. But it doesn't last the whole game now, it's only the first time you do a test. Other things, large targets are kind of good now, especially flying ones anyway, because they don't get cannoned off very easily anymore. The amount of damage that cannons do is down on what it used to be from the old days, and also big flyers can get like 3 saves on them now. So you can get a good armor save, a ward save, and a regeneration save, and you've got a lot of wounds comparatively to other units. Elite Cavalry, I think, struggles at the moment, like Grail Knights and Chaos Knights, I think, should have 2 wounds each. I don't think they're very good. And other than that, Dwarf war machines, not great. The main issue that I have with the old world, which I should really be saving for a top 5 things wrong with the old world, or top 5 old world problems, one of them is the scoring. The fact that you purely score for killing things means that you can't force your opponent into an unfavourable matchup with positioning, because they just don't have to fight you. They don't need to get to anything that's behind you, because they can just avoid killing it. They can just go off to the other side of the table and try and kill something else. If you corner camp, they're just not going to attack you. If it's not favourable to them, why would they attack anyone corner camping? Especially if they've got any ranged attack, they'll just shoot you and hope to kill something before the end of the game and win 11-9. You have to present something favourable to the enemy for them to attack, and you're putting yourself in a losing position then. So fast armies are a major advantage, I think, mainly, unless you take elite cavalry against dwarf shooting, because then you just get shot to bits because you're only 1 wound each. So big monsters with loads of saves. Big dragons just eat entire armies on their own at the moment. My dwarf list I put out here, an 800 point chaos dragon. I don't know if any of my units would be able to beat it. And it would probably eat a lot of my units. It would get loads of points, and it would not die during the game against my army, probably. So that's the state the game's in, and everything else in the army could just hide. You could just fight me with that one dragon and get enough kills to win the game. Which is sad, that is a thing that can happen. What we want to see for a game of Warhammer is that the blocks of infantry have a big fight in the middle, the cavalry is supporting them, you've got chaff units out in front to try and get your units to double team the enemy. They can't get their best unit in just yet, they have to wait a couple of turns because you've put your chaff in the way. You've got your big flyer going in at the same time as one of your units to tip the balance in your favour, but you don't really see that. You don't see battles that look like that at the moment. So hopefully they can tweak the rules so it looks more like a battle. At the moment you'll see units dropping down to a few models or a few wounds and then thinking, I am now a liability. At the moment I'm giving away 0 points, so I'm just going to stand behind this building for the rest of the game and not give away any victory points. What you want the game to be is that when that unit gets down to barely any wounds, cinematically you want it to make a heroic charge into something and try and score some kills before it goes down swinging. You want things that are about to die to have one last heroic action, not hide behind a building because it's just objectively the good thing to do. So the rules need a tweak, but in general it's a very fun game to play, very nostalgic especially. I'm not looking at it through the lens of anyone that didn't play old Warhammer, so people coming to it fresh might just find it really bad game system, I don't know. I'd have to ask some of them. But from the nostalgia standpoint, it's a lot of fun. You've still got some of the old fun things in there, like fanatics, miscasts, things you expect to see in Warhammer that are fun. A lot of those are still present. So, nice fun game system. Would like to see some problems addressed so that dwarves don't have to deploy in lines. Saurus Blood says static res blobs are good. Yeah, you can get buffs to your combat res in a lot of armies. So, against a big dragon, they're still good against it though because they get stomps as well. So they have to have a bad round to fail against you. So it's riskier if they go into something that has like a static combat res of 7. Then it's risky them attacking you in the first place. But they'll just attack something different. They just won't attack that unit. And you can't force them because they're fast. There you go. So, how do I feel about this? 3,000 points. Fun, but maybe too much to squeeze in to a tournament. Probably better for one-off games. I think bringing the points down level a bit next time could be good. Or perhaps introducing chess clocks, so you get people to pick armies that are going to play quickly and you can finish all the games, certainly. I think that would be good, potentially. I'm not a big fan of chess clocks in the old world, though, because it's too back and forth within each player's turn. You do a lot of things, you do a lot of dice rolling in your opponent's turn. You've got stand and shoot, you've got dispelling, you've got deciding whether you want to stand and shoot against which unit. So at what point do you pass over the clock? If someone's spending 10 seconds deciding which unit to shoot, do you pass the clock over to them immediately? Or do you wait a few seconds? It's a bit ambiguous. It's not like Kings of War, where you finish your turn, your opponent does nothing on your turn, and then you just tap the clock, your turn, and now you sit back and watch and just mark damage on your units for the whole turn. So it works a lot better on that kind of game system that's built for it. I don't think Old World is built for clocks. It would only be there as a last resort if people are never finishing their games, I think. Because you have to have some kind of enforcement on that, otherwise it benefits certain armies if the games aren't concluding properly. Let's see. I think kill point game can work, but the VP for casualties needs to go way up to avoid the pitfalls you just described. Yeah, so if you wound a unit, you should probably get points for that. If you're going purely kill as the only metric for victory, then it shouldn't be all or nothing. It should be either you score some kind of percentage based on the number of wounds you've done, and not just if you get them below 25, you score 25%. I've heard people suggesting that if you kill half a unit, you should get half the points. I think that would be good. I think if you do half the damage to a unit, not just the models, then you should get half the points. So you would get half the points for a big flyer. So they're giving less away if they stay in the fight then, rather than giving away the full value. So they're less likely to hide. So we'd have to test that out, I think, and then see how people play, whether it changes the play patterns. It would certainly change the end results a bit. So that's something I would like to see tried out in future. So, time to wrap this video up. How long have we been going? 2 hours, 16 minutes. I think that is actually a really good, fast report, considering it was 5 games at 3,000 points, almost as fast as my play in those games. Record 3,000 points, 16 minutes on my turns. See if you can beat that and let me know in the comments for a 3,000 point game. You can stare at the Slayer's big butt there while I go through the ending. So, don't forget to like the video if you haven't already. It looks like most of you have actually, so that's good. Don't forget to subscribe, of course. Check out all links in the description. There's various social media shenanigans down there to see what I'm up to. And obviously, if you think this is the best old world content out there and you want an endless torrent of it to stream non-stop into your homes via the internet, then why not pledge your entire life savings on the Patreon or the PayPal down there? And really, that just goes towards paying for more tournament tickets at the moment. That's all it pays for. So it just means I can attend more of them. The more people give me all their life savings, basically. Let's see what I've got coming up next before I leave as well. The next Old World event is... It is at the start of February. Right at the start of February. Before then, there'll obviously be battle reports as well. And between there, we've got an Age of Sigmar event and a Star Wars Shatterpoint event as well. So 2 different game systems coming up. Then Old World. Then we've got various Old World and Age of Sigmar and Kings of War and Star Wars Shatterpoint coming up for the next few months. Just mixing things up between those 3 systems a lot. And trying to find some Dead Zone. Maybe dabble in bolt action for battle reports. And anything else I can get my hands on. It's just non-stop gaming all the time. I don't understand how people can play one game system. It would drive me mad at this point. I think I just need non-stop wargaming in my life. I need to be painting and playing games constantly, otherwise I might go insane. And I haven't got the rules mixed up in my head between game systems yet. We'll see if it happens if I keep taking on more and more systems. Might happen eventually. Okay, yep, always be gaming. If you're not always gaming, what are you doing with your life? You're throwing it away, frittering it away, wasting it, squandering the opportunities life is giving you to game. Okay, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and all that remains to be said is, other than Happy New Year, good night out there, whatever you are.